3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
To infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Infinity Sports Network here in beautiful New York City, sitting on top of the 10th floor of 345 Hudson Street. Welcome on in to what is a Thursday edition of the Zach Gelb Show across all of our great local Infinity Sports Network affiliates, Sirius XM, Channel 375, the free Odyssey app, and of course streaming live on YouTube. 888-710-4ISN. That's 888-710-4476. We got a jam-packed show. Happy opening day to all that celebrate. I always remember as a kid, my parents letting me play hooky and go see the Mets at Shea Stadium, and then through the years, eventually Citi Field. So this is always a fun time of the year. You got the start of baseball season. We got the Sweet 16 that will get underway tonight with 4 games, and hopefully they are good games. And I think the games will get better and better. And then, before you know it, we will have the Masters right around the corner as well, and the NFL draft at the end of next month. So a whole lot to do today. Coming up, and 40 minutes from now, A-Rod, Alex Rodriguez, is going to stop by the show. Robbie Hummel's going to join us. Westwood One, college basketball analyst. You always remember him from his days at Purdue as well. He will join us to preview the Sweet 16 at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific time. So a whole lot to do, but I want to start the show today, and I'm really not sure which way I'm going to go on this, because my immediate thought before I listened to the entirety of Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah's press conference was I was livid, I was agitated, and I was fed up with the Minnesota Vikings and this whole dog and pony show with Aaron Rodgers. When you have J.J. McCarthy, your whole plan has been to build the roster and then kind of cut a corner or cheap out at the quarterback position, where you let Kirk Cousins go, you brought in Sam Darnold, you drafted J.J. McCarthy. All right, Sam exceeded expectations. I don't want to say he got the bag, but he got paid by the Seattle Seahawks. And then you have J.J. McCarthy, who you just used a 10th overall pick on last draft. And J.J. McCarthy was progressing well in the offseason. And then J.J. McCarthy got injured, and he was out all last season, and last season got wiped. Now, for most of last season, I thought this is what would happen. J.J. McCarthy would start week 1 for the Minnesota Vikings come 2025, and Sam Darnold would be somewhere else. It was only after the Green Bay Packers game, for a slight moment, when Sam was in the locker room getting thrown up on the offensive lineman's shoulders. You had Kevin O'Connell sitting there looking like a proud pop as they're like spraying water all throughout the locker room, where I said to myself, maybe Sam Darnold is going to play himself into the starting role in Minnesota next year. But as quick as I said that, as quick as that thought did disappear, because then Sam Darnold did what Sam Darnold does best, and that was not be the Sam Darnold that we saw for the majority of last season. And he played like crap up against the Lions, and he played like crap up against the Rams. So I never thought heading into this offseason, after how that season ended, that Sam Darnold would be back with the Vikings. I always thought Sam would be going somewhere else, and J.J. McCarthy would be the starter. Now, we have fun in the speculation because of what happened with Brett Favre, right? Green Bay to the Jets, then to Minnesota. And once Aaron Rodgers went from Green Bay to the Jets, people always made the joke 2 years ago, oh, don't wait, in short order, he'll be going to the Minnesota Vikings. So I understand why that conversation is out there. I understand why the joke is made. But the Vikings have also had a conversation or conversations with Aaron Rodgers as well. And the last 2 weeks, they have been given every opportunity to dispel the Aaron Rodgers conversation. And they have never emphatically said, J.J. McCarthy is our starting quarterback, and we are no longer pursuing Aaron Rodgers. Those words have not been uttered. Now, we've had reports like Tom Pelissero, they're planning to move forward with J.J. McCarthy. And yesterday, and this is why we're talking about this now, not only did Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah speak, but you saw Adam Schefter tweet out, Vikings want J.J. McCarthy as their QB1, but they won't rule out further talks with Aaron Rodgers. And when I saw that, my blood was boiling. I texted Samter and Stu, and I know Stu isn't here today because it's Yankee opening day, but I said to Stu and Samter, without reading the article yet, right? And that's not me doing my due diligence. Without listening to the entirety of the press conference, which I did this morning, I said, get ready, we're going to shred the Vikings tomorrow. That's what I thought. But then I was on the elliptical this AM, and I'm doing my hour elliptical ride, and I'm listening to the 24-minute Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah press conference, and I'm sitting there saying, all right, they're praising JJ. They're making it seem as if JJ is their guy. Maybe how we view QB1 and announcing someone as a starter, it doesn't usually happen this time of the year. But they keep on vaguely talking about Aaron, saying how much they're happy with JJ, but then they're still not saying they're no longer going to pursue the services of Aaron Rodgers. So I am still, this is the second day in a row, my brain is in a blender. Because yesterday, it was what's going to happen with the second and third pick of the draft. Will the Browns take Shedeur Sanders? Will the Giants take Shedeur Sanders? And I had enough of that conversation. And I know that conversation is not going away because the draft isn't until April 24th. Newsflash, football is king, especially in the national sports landscape. So we're going to be talking more and more and more about the draft, whether you like it or not, or whether I like it or not. And sometimes the topics get repetitive, but with how much new information we get or other dominoes that fall, it changes what your thought could be and what your opinion could be. So I left listening to this Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah press conference, still wanting more, still wanting an answer, because I do believe that JJ should be the starter, but I can't fully say he will be the starter because they could have nipped this Aaron Rodgers conversation in the bud. And even though they're saying, I'm happy with JJ, and we want JJ to be the guy, they still haven't said Aaron will not be on this team. Because here's a little insight for you. Aaron Rodgers is not going somewhere to be a backup. All right? So don't give me this nonsense about, insurance and improving the quarterback room, whether you think Aaron Rodgers is still great or not, and he has not been great in 3 years. Aaron Rodgers on your team, Aaron Rodgers is your QB1. Aaron Rodgers is your starting quarterback. And for me, with what Minnesota is building and the success that Minnesota has had, the only way I would bring in Aaron Rodgers is if I thought Aaron Rodgers, with probably a year left in his career, could go win a Super Bowl instantly in Minnesota. Like if this was Tom Brady, and especially that'd be a little bit different, right? Michigan connection, Brady and J.J. McCarthy, and let's say Brady was still playing, I would say, okay, you could go to Brady. McCarthy learned from Brady. Brady's still playing at an elite level in his 40s. Brady could still win a Super Bowl. But we haven't seen Aaron Rodgers play at an elite level in the last 3 years. So if you're bringing in Aaron Rodgers and you're the Minnesota Vikings, this is why I wouldn't do it. I don't look at them and say, that's the missing piece. Now the Minnesota Vikings are going to win a Super Bowl. You may be in a better position to win a Super Bowl this year with Aaron Rodgers than J.J. McCarthy. But it doesn't mean you're going to win the Super Bowl. And I don't see Aaron Rodgers, who was in Green Bay, right, and had home field advantage, has had other opportunities to get back to the Super Bowl. He couldn't do that when he was playing at an MVP level. So now at a lesser level, why would I think Aaron Rodgers, even with Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, Kevin O'Connell, TJ Hawkinson, Aaron Jones, why would I think Aaron Rodgers going to Minnesota puts them in the Super Bowl? I don't. So I don't think the juice is worth the squeeze. And I don't think it's worth it right now to tell J.J. McCarthy, we're going to sit you for another year. Like last year, he got not benched, but he didn't play because he was hurt. That's a difference. This year, he's ready to go. He's on McKay Adams the other day saying he feels like he's 100%. So I would have preferred a stronger stance from Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah. Now, I still walk away thinking to myself, I do think JJ's starting week 1. But can I say it's 100% no? I can't. And that's where I thought the Vikings general manager, even though there was a lot of in this 24-minute press conference, that's where I thought he dropped the ball and he should have been clearer in his take, because what this does is now it still empowers people to say, you didn't totally say it wasn't going to happen. So maybe Aaron Rodgers, who's still out there, the Giants are now, took themselves out of the running. So you look at the Steelers, they want him. Minnesota's the only other potential destination, or it's retirement. And that's the other thing. Oh, Aaron Rodgers can now retire. Ugh, give me a break. Just make a freaking decision already, dude. I'm so tired of this. Samter, I thought I was about to drop an F-bomb there. No, that was not going to be the case. All righty, let's hear from Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah. I'll play you 4 cuts here. Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah will play cut 1. Is J.J. McCarthy their future for this organization?
You guys all talk in terms of QB1 and all those conversations, different things like that. when we pull the resources we did to draft JJ, and you go through that long process and all those things, I can't stand up here and say that's the outcome we want, and that's the outcome we're headed towards. At every checkpoint, whether it been the draft process or practice until the injury, or really the offseason now, he's met the bar. I mean, he's exceeded our expectations at every point. And so I don't have the ability to tell you what the future is, but I can tell you what I expect to be the outcome. It's also our job to set up a quarterback room that's going to have, be able to meet, have great ideas, and prepare whoever it is to play, but also provide, insurance in case somebody needs to come in for a couple of games. And that's our job as a personnel department to look at all the options out there and make sure we're setting ourselves up for the best case we can.
I'll just be transparent. That gave me nothing. Absolutely nothing. That's just a GM doing GM speak right there. And that, to me, is something that I didn't want to hear yesterday. Here is Kwesi Adofo-Mensah when he was asked how the meeting with Aaron Rodgers ended.
We got to a place where we just said everybody was transparent, but right now we feel good about where we're going. And that's really how it ended. It's ultimately up to him. It's hard to talk about a player who's not under contract for our team and who plays for, obviously isn't a member of this team. It's ultimately up to him, what he decides to do with his future. But that's kind of where we left it. I know Kevin and him have a great relationship still. They'll still have a relationship. They'll keep talking. But right now I'm focused on the two players that are in our room right now and in my personnel process for going forward.
You want to talk about a word salad right there. He's sitting there, and he's saying it's tough to talk about a player, and he caught himself, that's on another team. He isn't on a team. He's a free agent, Aaron Rodgers. You're literally allowed to talk about him. But I thought the interesting part there, and trust me, he contradicts himself later, is he said the decision is it's up to Aaron Rodgers. So, Samter, can I just float a theory here? And I floated this before. If it's up to Aaron, couldn't that mean maybe Aaron's price tag is too big? And the Vikings said, we want to still stick by our plan. We're more than content with going with J.J. McCarthy. But if you want $45 million, I'm just throwing out numbers, $42 million, $40 million, whatever it is. If you want that rich price tag, go to Pittsburgh. Because we're only interested in you if you sign with us well below what you should be making for a year. That's the only thing that I could think of when Kwesi Adofo-Mensah says, hey, it's really up to Aaron. Because it feels like, all right, both parties have talked. There is some interest. There is some flirting. Rodgers has clearly been the desperate one here. And Minnesota's like, we're good, but our eyes are still wandering. If you really want to ooh and ah me and make me say, okay, we're in on Aaron Rodgers, Aaron, you got to come to us on a very cheap price tag. That's, to me, the only way I interpret that.
I mean, I think it could be price tag. I think it could be kind of some guidelines of how to conduct himself. Maybe it's you're coming in here and you're not the starter. You're coming in here and you're competing with J.J. McCarthy.
That's not going to happen then.
Well, so I think that's my point. I think maybe they sat down with him and said, okay, we're interested. We're considering you. You are one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. We know you. You've been in our division. But if you want to come here, XYZ must happen. And maybe XYZ is you're going to be the starter until we're comfortable for JJ to take over. And then he's going to take over. And maybe Aaron's like, well, I don't want that.
Now, do me a favor here. Play me that cut again. And then I'll tell you when to cut it off. But play me the one that we just played a few seconds ago.
We got to a place where we just said everybody was transparent, but right now we feel good about where we're going. And that's really how it ended. It's ultimately up to him. It's hard to talk about a player who's not under contract for our team and who plays for another.
Okay, you can stop it right there. It's ultimately up to him. So now let's go to Kwesi Adofo-Mensah when he got asked a follow-up on that. Is the door closed for Aaron Rodgers?
Can you say definitively then the door is closed with Rodgers? It kind of sounds like ultimately it was his decision and we're still looking for a veteran quarterback. Can you say that door is...
I don't know that it was ultimately, I don't know that I said it was ultimately his decision. I don't want to make sure that,
Yes, you did.
I think that I said that given where we are scenario-wise, we didn't think it was the right move at this time. It is also his decision to whether he signs with another team, not. That's ultimately up to another player. for me to sit here and say that anything's 100% forever, that's just not the job, right? We're responding to scenarios and different information as it comes. So, obviously things can change, but right now we're really happy with our room, and we're going to look to upgrade it in different ways. But for now, we're really excited.
So what he's saying is bullcrap. Like, okay, I understand saying, hey, nothing's 100%. Like, JJ could get hurt, and then we sign Aaron Rodgers. All we're asking for, Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, is for you to say, JJ's our guy. We are starting JJ McCarthy this year as long as he's healthy, and therefore we're not signing Aaron Rodgers. That's a different statement than, oh, hey, JJ could go break his leg in a month from now, and then, oh, maybe we go, sign Aaron Rodgers. You know how that's meant. And you've had every opportunity to rule out Aaron. And even though you say all these nice things about JJ McCarthy, you're still talking about Aaron. And you're still talking about the possibility. And you're still being vague. And you're still being ambiguous. It's like, enough. Minnesota, what are you doing? Aaron Rodgers is not winning you a Super Bowl. Aaron Rodgers is no longer an elite quarterback. Aaron Rodgers hasn't been a great quarterback in 3 years. If Aaron Rodgers could go to you and win you a Super Bowl, sure, I'm all for it. JJ, sit on the bench another year. Warm the bench for another year. And I think JJ is going to be a good quarterback in Minnesota. I think the fit is right. But Aaron Rodgers is not that dude anymore. He's not that guy anymore. So why even entertain this? Why jump through these hula hoops? Why have this word salad from Kwesi Adofo-Mensah? It's almost like he's afraid to just rule out Aaron Rodgers. Or he's hoping that Aaron comes back begging and saying, oh, I'll sign a cheap deal with you. But why? If you could win a Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers, I'd be all for it. But I don't think you're winning a Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers. So play the youngster. Rule out Aaron Rodgers and embrace J.J. McCarthy as your quarterback one. But you just wait and wait and wait and wait, and you let this drama wheel just spin and spin and spin and spin, and it's stupid. It's pointless. It's ridiculous. It's asinine. That's what this is. It really is. So finally, let's hear one more from the word salad general manager in Minnesota, Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, on not telling McCarthy that he's QB1 yet.
Does anybody ever tell the quarterback they're QB1? I don't know how that actually works, but our conversation with him have always been about your development, you being the best version of yourself. So when you say feelings, I don't know if it's necessarily feelings. It's about what we think actually tangibly impacts him reaching the ceiling we want him to reach. All those dynamics that actually matter for him, getting the reps, getting those different things because look, we're trying to win a championship, but that doesn't always happen in 1 year. We were trying to make sure that we're giving ourselves an op over the next how many years. And so to do that, we have to plan today, unknowing what's to come. And so a lot of that conversation just centers around that.
The more and more I sit here, the more and more this is a possibility. And it shouldn't be a possibility. It's just a bad job there by Kwesi Adofo-Mensah. You could have nipped this stuff in the bud, and you refused to do so. All righty, we'll take a timeout. Zach Gelb Show, Infinity Sports Network. We'll talk about Kevin Willard's future when we return. Alex Rodriguez, A-Rod, going to join us 20 minutes as well from now.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. 3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
This is the Zach Gelb Show.
I'll talk about Kevin Willard in just a second. But there's sometimes like I turn to my left and I see our call screener. And the way that it works is it says name, the city you're calling from, and a topic. And right, like you could call in, all right, you want to talk about opening day. You want to talk about Kevin Willard. You want to talk about LeBron and Stephen A. Smith. Like there's just certain things out there that you could call in and you could discuss. And sometimes they're on topic and sometimes they're not at 888-710-4ISN. That's 888-710-4ISN, 888-710-4476. And I look to my left and I see James in Atlanta is calling. And it says Zach is hypocritical on Rodgers. Now, before I yell, before I fight, before I punch back, I just want to hear how I'm hypocritical on Aaron Rodgers. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. So let's go to James in Atlanta because, James, you have just intrigued me here with what is said on the topic next to your name. Go ahead, James. What's happening?
Hello. How are you, Zach?
I'm doing great, James.
Hey, I've kind of caught you here and there throughout the years, different time slots and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And I just find it very hypocritical of you, where you were on the Aaron Rodgers hype train for several years at the end of his Green Bay years and then during his Jets years, and now you're kind of poo-pooing all over him.
How was let me just ask a question. How was I on the Aaron Rodgers hype train that, it was, what did I say that was so crazy? What, when he was winning back-to-back MVPs towards the end in Green Bay, I was praising him. When he got to the Jets, I said I thought it was a good move. And then going into last year, I said they were at best a wild card team. So how have I been, totally crazy here?
How you've been crazy about it is that you have been, while he was winning those MVPs,
mm-hmm.
and even in his first year with the Jets,
yeah,
what you were doing was that you were ignoring all of the baggage that came with him, and you were kind of just brushing it under the rug.
Well, yeah, I thought the juice was worth the squeeze then. I don't think the juice is worth the squeeze anymore. Now, I've had reports out there about Aaron Rodgers that talked about some of his poor behavior, like how he would blow off Matt LaFleur when he would get more, LaFleur wanted more insight from Rodgers in the game plan, and Rodgers acted like a jerk and would just blow off his coach. So it hasn't been as if I've only been positive about Aaron Rodgers. I've even said this because I'm a Brady guy, right? So I haven't always been the biggest fan of Aaron Rodgers, but I could separate that. I still think he's a great quarterback. But I've said numerous times that his career is going to end without a second Super Bowl. And sure, in one breath, he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's a top 10 quarterback of all time. But in the other, I've wanted more of the Aaron Rodgers career because he never got back to another Super Bowl.
But that's the thing, is that you didn't stress that enough. All you talked about was
James,
MVPs.
You said you caught me here and there, right?
Yes, I don't have anything written down. I don't follow your show that much.
That's fine. So how do you know what I say day in and day out? Like if I'm wrong on something, I'm wrong on something. We talk about Aaron Rodgers a lot because he's polarizing and he's one of the biggest stars that the NFL has. But me thinking a few years ago the guy is great, and now me saying he's no longer that and the juice isn't worth the squeeze, and Minnesota's not going to win a Super Bowl with him, I just don't understand how I'm being hypocritical here.
But if I'm only tuning in every once in a while and everything I hear from you, at least in the past few years, has been pro Aaron Rodgers, and now you're flipping the script, I find that hypocritical.
Okay, but this is what I still don't gather. So let's say, all right, I've been very pro Aaron Rodgers. Eventually, Father Time is undefeated. So if Aaron Rodgers at the age of 41, if my take today is I don't believe the Minnesota Vikings should pursue him, just because I praised him in 2021, 2022, and 2023, going into those seasons, how does that make me hypocritical when eventually everyone's career inevitably comes to an end and I don't think he's the same player that he once was?
We're not talking about his career. We're talking about his off-the-field antics, and we're talking about him being toxic to his fan base, which I just stated early on.
Well, wouldn't you admit, though, that we've learned more about Aaron Rodgers? Wouldn't you admit that we've learned more about Aaron Rodgers the last few years through his interviews with Pat McAfee, and he's kind of opened up a new Aaron Rodgers to us that a lot of us nationally did not see when he was in Green Bay?
No, I don't. Because I think that it's been out there for the public to view, whether they wanted to choose to view it or not.
Okay, so what are you specifically talking about?
There's a reason why most of his family doesn't even have connections with him. I mean, you have to be a pretty crappy person
but hold on.
To essentially
we don't know why
have
that's
your whole
the
family
case.
eschew you.
We don't know why that's the case.
No, we don't.
So, I could have an issue with a family member, and I could say I don't talk to a family member. Does that mean I'm a crappy person, or could the family member be a crappy person?
We're not talking about one family member here with Aaron Rodgers. We're talking about several family members.
So
let's get that straight.
So what's your point? You just don't like Aaron Rodgers. You think he's a bad guy, and therefore you don't like now because I said he was a good football player for all those years that now I'm saying that they shouldn't sign him. Is that what it is?
I'm just calling you a hypocrite.
Okay.
You can agree with me or not agree with me.
That's fine. You can call me whatever you want. You can call me an idiot, moron, a dope, a jackass. But, I still don't understand how I'm being a hypocrite here when my main take in the opening segment didn't even really talk about the off-the-field stuff, didn't really talk about the commitment. I was just saying the juice isn't worth the squeeze. I don't think he's a great player anymore. So
we've known who Aaron Rodgers is all along.
Okay, but now you're not listening. You're not listening.
No, I am listening.
So what was my take in the first 15 minutes?
Your take in the first 15 minutes was about him possibly going to the Minnesota Vikings.
And how I don't think it should happen.
Yes.
And why did I think that this shouldn't have happened?
You didn't think that it should happen because it would be a kind of a poop show, I guess is a good way of putting it.
No, I don't think it should happen because I don't think you're winning the Super Bowl. And thanks for the phone call, James. You didn't make much sense there. But I didn't think the juice is worth the squeeze in terms of him playing. Now, you don't like Aaron Rodgers, the person, that's fine. You think he's a jerk, that's fine. But, let's not ignore the fact that we didn't know a lot about Aaron Rodgers, the person, for the last few years. And there have been days I watch on McAfee I love him. There's been days I watch on McAfee I hate him. My first 15 minutes has been nothing about Aaron Rodgers, the person. Whether you like Aaron or not, or you like the things that he says or not, or the way he behaves or not. I didn't even have a problem last year with the way that he handled going to Egypt or wherever he went. I poked fun at the ayahuasca stuff. I poked fun at the darkness retreat stuff. But this idea that I've sat here, being at the network since 2018 with pom-poms out about Aaron Rodgers is ridiculous. Yes, I didn't think that the Green Bay Packers should have drafted Jordan Love. They ended up getting it right, to be fair. Now, Love still has a long way to go, but it's worked out for them. Yes, I thought Aaron Rodgers was going to be successful in New York. I also didn't know Aaron Rodgers was going to blow out his Achilles 3 plays into a season. I didn't know that stuff. So that's fine. All right, so because he was playing at a great level in Green Bay, where I then even have criticized him for coming up short in some of those games, especially the Tampa Bay NFC Championship game, and then thinking the Jets were right to bring him in, now because I'm saying that at 41 he shouldn't go to Minnesota, that makes me a hypocrite? To me, it would be a hypocrite if I said to Samter, hey, don't eat that slice of pizza, let's say because people ordered pizza today, because I'm saving it for someone, and then I eat that slice of pizza, right? That would be a hypocrite. Me saying Aaron Rodgers is a great quarterback, which he is, that's a fact, and I thought he was great in Green Bay. I thought he was going to be, great with the Jets, and it didn't happen. But now saying that he's no longer great because he's older, and he hasn't been great in 3 years, that makes me a hypocrite. All right, sure. If that makes me a hypocrite, I could be called a hypocrite for a lot worse. So... And it's funny, you claim that you know everything that I've said, but then you barely listen. So which one is it? And I'm usually fair. If I'm wrong on something, hand up, I'm wrong, we keep it moving. That's it. But in this case, you can't act like you know everything I said about Aaron Rodgers, and then you end up saying, oh, yeah, maybe not. Don't call me a hypocrite for something about this. You just don't like Aaron Rodgers. That's fine. That's your opinion. You don't like Aaron Rodgers, the caller. It's bottom line. All right, Alex Rodriguez will join us next. It is Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. Update time first. Here's Zach.
Infinity Sports Network. Sports Flash.
And it's sponsored by Progressive Insurance. Insurance for motorcycles, boats, RVs, for protection on the road and on the water. See how much you can save at 1-800-PROGRESSIVE and Progressive.com. The baseball season is underway, and Austin Wells is the first catcher to hit leadoff in Yankees history. And the move paid off as he homered to lead things off, as the Yankees now have a 1-0 lead over the Brewers in the bottom half of the second. The start between the Orioles and Blue Jays in Toronto is being delayed, and we have a rain delay in St. Louis, where the Twins and Cardinals are set to meet today. About half dozen games set to get underway at the top of the hour. The Sweet 16 tips off tonight with BYU and Alabama, or I should say BYU and Alabama in Newark, to be followed by the region's top seed Duke and Arizona, while out west Maryland meets Florida, and the second part of the doubleheader features upset-minded Arkansas and Texas Tech. Penn has hired Iowa's Fran McCaffrey to lure him back to his alma mater to try to restore pride, and the Flyers today have fired head coach John Tortorella. I'm Rich Ackerman.
This is the Infinity Sports Network. Follow us on Instagram. Our handle is Infinity Sports Network. That's Infinity Sports Network to follow us on Instagram.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. 30 seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Welcome back to the Zach Gelb Show.
Alrighty, we continue. This is Zach Gelb Show, coast to coast on the Infinity Sports Network. Let's go out to the guest line right now. Welcome in one of the best baseball players I've ever seen. He's a 3-time MVP, a World Series champion, and he's here today on behalf of Lysol, and that, of course, is Alex Rodriguez. A-Rod, appreciate the time. How are you?
Zach, great to see you, and thank you for having me.
I appreciate you coming on. So I'm in New York right now, New York City, and everyone's gearing up for the baseball season, Mets and Yankees. And the big news still is Juan Soto leaving the Yankees to come to the Mets. When that did go down this offseason, how did you kind of process it?
Well, I thought it was a historic day for baseball, an incredible day for the New York Mets organization and Juan Soto. And look, anytime you have players like Ohtani and Juan Soto who are at the top of not just baseball, but in sports around the world, it's great that they get these incredible, rewarding contracts because it shows you how healthy the game is.
You know, it's crazy. As a Met fan, I'm excited for this season, but you mentioned Ohtani, you mentioned the Dodgers. They're still right in the back of my mind saying, there's all-star teams and then there's this Dodgers team that's the defending World Series champions, and they got even better, and maybe they'll even be healthier this year. The Dodgers are clearly the team to beat. How do you kind of handicap Major League Baseball right now with everyone chasing the Dodgers?
Yeah, I think exactly how you said it, Zach. I think it's the Dodgers versus the field. It reminds me of when Tiger won in his heyday, right? It was Tiger versus the field. I feel the same way about the Dodgers. But, I mean, the Dodgers, if you look at what they're doing, it is extraordinary. And I call it the trifecta, right? They have an amazing business that they're running. They draft and develop well, and they're amazing in free agency, both domestically and globally. And they also do a tremendous amount with the community. But they may also be the first team in professional sports that hits over $1 billion in gross revenue, which just shows you. And the reason why that's important is it allows them to invest tremendous amount of resources into great players.
Just wondering, so the best baseball player I've ever seen, you're obviously up there, but it was Barry Bonds. Is Ohtani, with what he does, and we'll see what that looks like getting back on the mound, is he, to you, the best baseball player you've ever seen?
No, the best player I've ever seen is Barry Bonds, like head and shoulders above everyone, almost like Michael Jordan, like just a class of his own. Barry Bonds was so good, it's hard to articulate how good this guy was. He's also baseball royalty with Willie Mays as a godfather and also the great Bobby Bonds as his dad. Barry Bonds is in a class of his own. However, Barry doesn't pitch, and Barry can't throw 100 miles an hour, even though Barry will probably tell you he could. But as far as the most unique, most special player that I've ever seen, it has to be Shohei Ohtani, especially when he's able to, pitch as well, because then that only becomes a class of two, Shohei and Babe Ruth.
Talking to Alex Rodriguez on behalf of Lysol. Let's get to the Yankees. Obviously, you played there for a long time. Season gets off to an unfortunate note with the Garrett Cole news a few weeks ago. Just what are your expectations for the Yankees?
I think the Yankees are going to be really good this year. I think you got to give the organization, Brian Cashman, a lot of credit to be able to have a shot right in the heart when you lose a guy like Juan Soto, which is demoralizing. He was so good with the 1-2 punch, as good as we've seen probably since Roger Maris and Mickey Mantle. What him and Aaron Judge did together was poetry in motion. And I'm sure you got a chance to see, I got a chance to see a lot of that. It was a lot of fun to watch. But they really quickly pivoted and took those resources and brought in some tremendous assets, from Bellinger to Max Fried to others. Obviously, the injury is going to hurt early on here with Garrett Cole. But I think, they should get healthy and hopefully hot at the right time. And I'm sure when the time is right, Brian Cashman will bring in whatever they're lacking.
When you get to Aaron Judge, right, you won 3 MVPs before getting a World Series. And when you accomplish so much at such a historical level, and you're really one of the faces of the sport, you know what the question is. It's great what Alex did, but can he win the big one? Can he get the World Series championship, especially when you're playing for a franchise like the New York Yankees? That's all they do, have guys in their history that win, 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 win. Judge now has 2 MVPs. Unfortunate ending in the World Series last year. Just what type of advice would you give him in kind of handling all that spotlight and that question that never ends of, hey, until you get one, is Aaron Judge capable of winning a World Series?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure I'm in a position to give Aaron or anybody advice. I mean, Aaron's doing just fine on his own. He's just a tremendous player, a historic player, and just an amazing human being. Unlike other sports like basketball or even like Tom Brady in football, where Michael Jordan or LeBron or Steph Curry have the ball when it counts, sometimes it's just a matter of the reason why I'm part of a world championship is because we had tremendous teammates, and we brought in Cece Sabathia and AJ Burnett and Andy Pettit, and we have Mariano Rivera and Derek Jeter. I'm surrounded with just incredible players, and I'm very fortunate to be a part of that. But I think Aaron's, his title is going to be as much as who's around him as also with his performance. So I think they're tied in together. But I do think in New York, Zach, to highlight your great point, it's the conversation that just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's not going to go away until it's addressed.
Alex Rodriguez here with us on behalf of Lysol. I got to ask you about Alex Bregman, because when you got to the Yankees, right, we all knew what you could do at shortstop, and that was on full display. But you went to third. Derek Jeter stayed at shortstop with the Red Sox. Rafael Devers was at third base. Now he's going to DH, and Bregman is going to third base, and it's created a little bit of a problem. How do you think that all went down in Boston? And do you think Bregman maybe should have just came in and said, hey, Rafael Devers, this is your team. I'll do what you want me to do?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I can't comment on anything going on with the Red Sox. I don't have any information or preview of how they kind of run their everyday business. But what I do know is a good problem to have for the Red Sox. Devers is one of the most talented hitters around. Alex Bregman is one of the, all-time best winners in the game today. Clutch player, plus defender, plus character. And the Dodgers and the Red Sox in particular have made some really, really good moves. They have one of the best managers in the game in Alex Cora. So I think the Red Sox are back on the saddle. It's going to be fun to see how they navigate. This could be an early on distraction, but I think with those two guys, I know them well. They're both great people. I think they figure out a way how to get it done.
I want to get back to your career, because the last 2 years, whether it's hosting nationally or on WFAN in New York, anytime Monument Park has come up, I said A-Rod should have a plaque. Anytime the Hall of Fame has come up, I say that Alex Rodriguez should be in Cooperstown. Do you believe that there will be a day where you could say, okay, you're in Monument Park and you're also in Cooperstown?
Oh, man. I mean, you mentioned the championship we got almost, over 15 years ago now. I can't believe that 2009, it feels like yesterday, it was so long ago. It would be a dream and an honor to share that with my family and my daughters, to be in Monument Park. I'm obviously a great student of the game, of the history of the game. One of the reasons why I changed positions in the prime of my career was to honor the pinstripes. And George Steinbrenner made a very compelling pitch to me that, being a third baseman in New York is greater than being a shortstop anywhere else. And I bought into it, and it was one of the greatest decisions I made in my life. As far as the Hall of Fame, again, I've thrown my last pitch. I caught my last ball and hit my last baseball. So I think I've made the best pitch I can make, and hopefully is up to the voters now. But if they let me in one day, I'll be honored. And if not, then I have to, keep it moving.
But would you say anything to the voters? Because, there's been guys that have used performance-enhancing drugs that have been in. Some guys have not. It's very selective. I think you should be in. Roger Clemens, Barry Bonds, Manny Ramirez, list goes on and on and on. Because, Alex, that was my era. And, not everyone may love you, obviously, but the numbers are still the numbers. When I watch Alex Rodriguez, I said this is one of the greatest baseball players I've ever seen. So what would you say to a voter who would just say because of performance-enhancing drugs, he's not going to vote for you?
Well, look, I mean, everyone has their vote, and I'm not going to change their vote in any way, shape, or form. As a baseball fan, I can tell you that, I love going to Cooperstown. I was there for Big Papi. I hope and pray that one day Barry Bonds gets in, Roger Clemens gets in, Pete Rose gets in. I'd rather kind of support those guys. As far as me, I'll let the voters, make their vote.
All righty, tell me what you're doing today on behalf of Lysol.
Yeah, so pretty cool, Zach. It's my second year partnership with Lysol. I'm very excited to honor what I know kind of gets a bad rap is how great these umpires are and the scrutiny they're under. But we're now highlighting them, and look, they do a lot of good work. And through Lysol, what I've learned is that they smell up, and we try to come in and fix things. And Lysol, give you a couple facts here. The sweat leads to bacteria that builds up, which can cause stink and sweaty post-game laundry. And Lysol laundry sanitizer kills 99.9% of all odor-causing bacteria in laundry. So they stink it up. Lysol does this thing. And more than anything, I think it's important to highlight how difficult this job is for men and women who are, probably the most underpaid and underappreciated folks in sports.
You probably could have had a few teammates back in the day in the locker room that could have used that Lysol, right? Anyone in particular?
Including me.
Hey,
especially in the hot summer.
Yeah. Before we let you run, I know that your daughter goes to Michigan. I see all the posts, whether it's football and basketball. You got to be thrilled with what Dusty May has done in year one, get him to the Sweet 16, right?
Well, yes. I don't watch too much college hoops, to be honest with you, but I was just there for the Big Ten women's gymnastics and what UCLA won. But I was there with my daughter to support women's sports. I think they're doing great things. And we should be talking more about women's sports because it's really commendable how much they've grown over the years.
Well, A-Rod, we appreciate the time. Thanks so much for doing this.
You bet. Thank you, Zach.
There he is, Alex Rodriguez on the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. Finally get to play that conversation for you. Hope you enjoyed it. And this portion of the show is sponsored by Hyundai. The Hyundai Getaway Sales event is going on now. Get deals so right, it almost feels wrong. But don't wait. Visit your local Hyundai dealer today. Got about a minute and 30 seconds here. Quickly, let me go to Ben in Maryland next up on the Zach Gelb Show. Ben, go ahead.
Hey, what's up, Zach? Thanks for taking my call. I was going to call about Sweet 16, but, now that A-Rod is on talking baseball, big Orioles fan, and I know that the Orioles are right behind the Yankees coming in, and, talking about Garrett Cole and the injuries, but I don't know. I think the Yankees are a really good team, Cody Bellinger and all the guys, and especially now that they're in New York, I'm not so confident that the Orioles will be better than the Yankees, and I think that the Yankees are the number one team to beat the Dodgers, especially with last year's World Series. If, a lot of people in New York think, if Aaron Judge didn't drop that ball, then they would have maybe even made some sort of comeback. Bring it into Game 7.
Yeah, Ben, I appreciate the phone call, and thanks so much for making it. Here's the thing with baseball, and I said it to A-Rod. I'm a Met fan. I'm excited for this season. The Mets have a really damn good team. The Dodgers, though, are I caught myself in interviewing A-Rod, they're a superstar team on steroids, honestly. When you look at them, they're unbelievable. The Yankees, though, without Garrett Cole, I know they have Fried. I just think the Yankees are the best team in the AL. The Red Sox will be a challenger. The Orioles will see if they could move this thing forward. I just don't see a team in the AL in a 7-game series being able to beat the Dodgers 4 times. But maybe the Dodgers get taken down by the Mets, the Padres, the Braves, the Phillies, whoever. And you never know. That's why they play the games. And, hey, the Dodgers overcame injuries last year and able to win a world championship.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. 3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
All righty, hour number 2 of our radio program. That's right, it is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. You know, yesterday we spent a good amount of time, not like the entire show, but we definitely did at least a segment on Stephen A. Smith up against LeBron James, because LeBron James basically did like, let me drop my you-know-what on your forehead to Stephen A. pretty much by going on an ESPN entity in the Pat McAfee show, and basically LeBron James marked his territory and urinated on Stephen A. Smith's turf. Yesterday, I did not think it was a good day for LeBron James. When I look back at some of the things that did transpire from that, I thought that it was very, big word of the show today, hypocritical of Stephen A. Smith. of LeBron James, because he was annoyed with some of the unfair coverage that he thought he was getting with Stephen A. Smith. So then you go on a platform like the Pat McAfee Show, which is a mega platform, and then you basically lie and you provide your own unfair coverage. And there's some clips that we'll play back, and we'll get into this, where LeBron talked about a lot of weird energy a few weeks ago with Anthony Edwards, how I could see why he wouldn't want to be the face of the NBA. And I basically took that as, there's like a lot of former players, a lot of people, they talk about how the NBA used to be great and how it's no longer. And then LeBron gets on Pat McAfee's show and basically just trashes the era of the 70s and the 80s and goes, Giannis Antetokounmpo would be able to put up 250 points a game. So I'll tell you, I love LeBron growing up. I remember seeing LeBron his rookie season. I want to say it was Thanksgiving weekend. We were going to a Sunday, my family, we were going to Boston. We were going to a Patriot-Ravens game, and that was Tom Brady up against Ray Lewis. And I want to say it was on the Friday night or the Saturday night before the Patriots game. It was a pretty cool sports weekend. We got to see the Boston Celtics at TD Garden. I believe they had Antoine Walker and Paul Pierce, and I love Paul Pierce growing up. And we saw them go up against the Cleveland Cavaliers with this mega star in LeBron James, right, the phenom. So I always liked LeBron James. And even when he did the decision, I thought it was tone deaf, but I always acknowledged that even though I thought it was a rotten thing that LeBron did, and that's how he told the Cleveland Cavaliers he was leaving the organization, and it was disservice to his fans and a lot of people that grew up near him that root for the Cleveland Cavaliers, that night they raised a lot of money for the Boys and Girls Club, which I think, they should not have done it. I know that there were some close to LeBron, I know this for a fact, pleaded with him, advised him not to do that, but other people that were closer to him that were in his ear said, no, we need to go do this event and make this a decision. But other than that, there really hasn't been a moment recently where you could legitimately be perturbed by LeBron James. Like, left Miami, went back to Cleveland, one of the most memorable sports moments ever, wins that championship, comes on back from down 3-1 up against the Golden State Warriors, leaves after, Cleveland again, goes to the Lakers. People didn't think he would win a championship. He's won a championship. And the Bronny stuff, I've always said this. I have no problem with Bronny being in the NBA. But the Stephen A. Smith confrontation, I thought was unnecessary. And you were trying to put on a show, LeBron, and you did it in the middle of the game. It was the third quarter going into the fourth quarter. And I have someone, not that my dad's LeBron James, but my dad, right, is in this business. So sometimes you will get people that will say ridiculous and unfair things about me. And, it's part of the territory. I don't give a rat's ass. I really don't. But I've always said, I wouldn't want my dad responding for me. I'm a grown man. I could respond for myself. I don't think LeBron needed to be holding the hand of Bronny for whatever Stephen A. said about Bronny, which I've listened to it. I didn't think anything crossed the line. And full disclosure, I like Stephen A. Smith. Stephen A. Smith, I find him wildly entertaining. Do I agree with all of his opinions? Absolutely not. Do I agree with all of his shtick? Absolutely not. But I think he's more good for sports media than bad for sports media. And he got a boatload of money to do this. And I think the more money people make in sports media, the better. And Stephen A. Smith, right? Not that I know him well, but he came to Temple University once to speak when I was a student, did a 15-minute radio interview with me. We remained in contact. There was one night, I've shared this story before, I was hosting in Philadelphia on WIP, and the security guard, I guess, was a spitting image, a doppelganger, as they call him, of Stephen A. Smith, and there was a fight on the court. And people were like, what's Stephen A. Smith? Who does he think he is breaking up this fight? It was a security guard. And I texted Stephen A. Smith. He had no clue what was going on. He's like, yeah, that's not me. I wouldn't do that. So I understand some things that Stephen A. Smith says you got to take with a grain of salt. I do this job. I'm here 5 days a week, 3 hours in, a day, outside of football season. In football season, I'm on 7 days a week where I give you more shows per week that you end up getting. And I understand people are going to misconstrue what you say. Sometimes I'll give you great takes. Other days I'll get takes wrong. Sometimes you cross the line. And sometimes you don't. Like, we're not all perfect. But this idea that LeBron has been significantly mistreated by Stephen A. Smith, give me a break. Like, LeBron doesn't ever think his you-know-what stinks, all right? And that's what happens when you be called a king for 25 years, is you think no one can really go tug at your crown. Like, what if people really said critically of LeBron James? I could only think of 3 instances. When he, or actually 4 instances. When he left the Cleveland Cavaliers the first time, then when he acted like a pompous ass after he lost the series up against the Mavericks. That, to me, is actually his worst moment. You thought the play on the court was bad up against the Mavericks in the NBA Finals. When LeBron James sat in front of the cameras after that Finals loss to the Mavericks, which is his lowest moment in his career, in my opinion, and basically said, you know, the sun's going to come up tomorrow and everybody else is going to have to go live their own miserable life. I thought that was so weak and just so lame and so gutless of LeBron James. But outside of those moments, like, what, LeBron not giving an opinion or basically telling Daryl Morey to shut up when the whole China issue happened, and then the Bronny stuff. Think about that. LeBron has been in the spotlight for, what, 25 years now? And there's only 4 moments where there was blowback with LeBron James. 2 were to a high degree, the other 2 not so much. So this idea that LeBron James is treated unfairly, oh, give me a break. Like, I'm still trying to see what Stephen A. said that was that crazy. And I only have one thing, and Stephen A. has apologized for it. And I even said this to Samson before the show. I thought it was weak to say that, oh, he didn't show up to Kobe's memorial service. I always find that weird I still find it weird when we talk about Kobe. I still can't believe Kobe Bryant's dead, right? So when you're using a point in a beef and you're using someone that's dead, and LeBron also showed up, I guess he just didn't want to be seen on camera, as the story goes. It's like, that to me was low class by Stephen A. But outside of this, I think LeBron James comes off as petty, sensitive, and weak here. And I look at this as more of a win of Stephen A. Now, does Stephen A. ever shut up about this? No. But what I thought was the weakest was Brian Windhorst getting dragged into this. Like, Brian Windhorst has been associated with LeBron James for years. I've never heard Windy say that they're best friends, that they hang out together. And LeBron James basically on national television yesterday and on a national platform stabbed Brian Windhorst in the back, who's been more positive than negative about LeBron, and he's been extremely kind when talking about LeBron. That guy who's been there, you know, back when you were in high school, you stabbed him in the back? What the heck did Brian Windhorst say? He's never acted like he's your best friend. So LeBron lies, and he thinks just because he says it, and he has these sycophants, obviously, because he has a huge following, he's a great player, second greatest player of all time, that whatever he says is factual. And this is what I know about LeBron James. He'll never say he's wrong. He won't. LeBron James, if you ever question him, you're dead to him, pretty much. So I used to be a big LeBron James fan. I'm kind of tired of LeBron. The last, 2 years, I've reached my LeBron fatigue where I can still appreciate his greatness on the court, and he's still great. But he's kind of a phony. He is a phony. And that's disheartening for someone that I used to really enjoy as a kid. So this is LeBron James. We'll play you all this stuff. LeBron James on the beef that he has with Stephen A. Smith. This was yesterday on the Pat McAfee Show.
He's like on a Taylor Swift tour run right now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we're watching it. Yep. We're also. Mm-hmm.
It started off with, I didn't want to address it. I wasn't going to address it. But since the video came out, I feel the need to address it.
Yeah, we're viral. You would have talk about it.
Are you kidding me? If there's one person that couldn't wait to the video to drop so you can address it, it's your ass. Like, seriously, and like another, he completely missed the whole point. The whole point. Never would I ever not allow people to talk about the sport, criticize players about what they do on the court. That is your job. But when you take it and you get personal with it, it's my job to not only protect my damn household, but protect the players. You know, and I think a lot of the media, including him, and I know he's gonna be happy as hell. He's gonna be smiling from ear to ear when he hears me talking about it again. Oh my God, he's gonna get home and grab some ice cream out of the freezer and sit in his chair and his tighty whities on the couch.
I hope at some point you two do get a chance. But you're right.
Dude, relax, bro. Relax. Seriously.
So he's not wrong in terms of Stephen A. has gone on a Taylor Swift tour talking about this, but the irony in that is, LeBron, you literally set up an interview with Pat McAfee to do an hour and 15 minutes on a platform which is also consumed by Stephen A. Smith. And even though I don't view Stephen A. and Pat McAfee as rivals, since they're like the two highest earners, and I guess Greeny too, at ESPN, people pit each other up against one another, you're literally going on his turf to then talk about this even more. Like, you know this is going to get brought up. You know this is going to generate the most clicks. So that's like the phony level of LeBron. Like, look at me. Stephen A. loves this. All he does is talking about it, and yet you're still talking about it. So that's where I think LeBron also comes off as phony. Now, LeBron, right, was all sensitive about how the NBA is covered and how the old guard is just disrespectful to the new wave of players. Well, listen to LeBron James on the Pat McAfee show, says the current NBA players would dominate in the 70s.
You trying to tell me Giannis wouldn't be able to play an NBA game in the 70s?
I think he wouldn't be able to do it.
Neither would you.
Giannis Antetokounmpo would have 250 points in a game in the 70s. 250.
Is that Koozie? When was Koozie playing?
Koozie's 50.
Dude, Koozie's locking up. Be honest, brother.
He's saying 70s, not 50s.
And that's no disrespect. Like, it's no disrespect. But, like,
stop.
seriously, like, Kyrie Irving. Like,
They would have called him a witch. They would have called him a witch.
No, they would have told Kyrie, you're not. You know how they used to tell Lou Alcindor at the time that he couldn't dunk in high school games? Yeah. They would have told Kyrie, you're not allowed to dribble anymore. Mm-hmm. That's what they would have told him. Dribbling is out rude.
So LeBron is being disrespectful there. Giannis would average 250 a game. Oh, but I'm not being disrespectful. Hand up, because I'm not a hypocrite. That's like when I say I'm about to trash someone. I go, I like this person, but... And then you follow it up with something negative. That's what LeBron James basically just did, except in the reverse way. Oh, let's make a jab at the 70s, but I'm not being disrespectful. My ass. Seriously. Come on, LeBron. Now, this was the lowest one from LeBron. He went after Brian Windhorst. Windy, just mind his own business. All he's been is pretty much positive to LeBron James. And you go after Brian Windhorst? Ridiculous.
I see a lot of too. Like, I seen Brian Windhorst on one of these shows not too long ago. Like,
Wendy.
Yeah, you played over high school.
Wendy, you guys played together in high school.
Yeah,
right? He was on your high school.
This guy was like, says he's like my best friend. These guys are just weird.
Yeah, weird. You know what's weird? LeBron going on this show and dropping like 10,000 F-bombs, right? And trying to make a beef with Brian Windhorst, who has only been good to you. That's weird to me, LeBron. All right, let's go to Stephen A. Smith. You knew there would be a response. Stephen A. Smith did call LeBron James a liar. This was on the Stephen A. Smith show.
Don't the truth matter? Because there's one person in this ordeal that's telling the truth, and it's me. I don't lie to y'all. His ass lies a lot. And there's a lot of shady stuff that he does. And one of the things is his passive aggressiveness and the two-facedness and smile in your face and dig you behind the back. I happen to know that about him, which is why I don't like him, and he don't like me. But it doesn't stop me from being fair and calling it like I see it. We ain't exchanging Christmas gifts. We ain't having Thanksgiving dinner together. What you bring your son up in there for? What you bring your family up in there before? You gonna go on Pat McAfee show, talk about you gonna protect your house. What you talking about? Your son ain't at the house. He's at Crypto.com Arena. We ain't covering him in Brentwood. We covering him in downtown LA at the Crypto.com Arena, where you put him.
Yeah, like that's a great point by Stephen A. What did Stephen A say where Bronny was threatened and he's just protecting his house? Like, give me a break. Your son's in the NBA. Your son's a professional athlete. If Stephen A crossed the line, all right, you could have a confrontation. Let your son fight your own battles, though. His own battles. You don't got to fight your son's battles, too. Just weak. And he's not wrong in the two-face stuff. LeBron tries to be buddy-buddy with everybody. That's honestly my biggest complaint about LeBron. Can we have some rivals? You don't got to love everybody that you go up against. All righty. And LeBron tries to love everybody. And it's very phony. Stephen A. Smith defended Brian Windhorst.
I have worked with Brian Windhorst for years. Never once did he say that LeBron was a best friend. A matter of fact, years earlier, it was LeBron who sat in front of the microphones and said, probably nobody knows me better than Brian Windhorst, who's been covering me since I was in junior high school. But that's how he talked about him. Brian Windhorst is an exceptional commentator who does a phenomenal job for ESPN. He is one of the elite people covering the NBA in this world. And nobody, I repeat, nobody defends LeBron James more than that man. And look at what LeBron James did.
That's the funny part. Like, I have said on the air before, numerous times, like, oh, Brian Windhorst, like in a joking but somewhat serious way. Oh, that LeBron James apologist carries the water for LeBron James. And LeBron goes after him? LeBron stabs him in the back? Over what? What has Windhorst said? What has Windhorst acted like? I'd be like, your best friend who's only nice to you, you wake up one day, you're like, I just don't want to deal with him. And Windhorst has not said that he's his best friend. That's just wild to me. It's very douchey by LeBron James. But he's got to create this narrative that everybody's out to get him. Give me a break. Now, this was the biggest joke. Stephen A. Smith said if LeBron would have put hands on him, he immediately would have swung back. Listen up.
That man put his hands on me, I would have immediately swung on him. Immediately.
Remember Stephen A. Smith once when talking about Lamar Odom? He was like, he was on crack. You know, Stephen A. He was on crack there. Like, you're not swinging at LeBron. Say what you want. LeBron would stuff you in a locker. Oh, my God. Here is Brian Windhorst on media versus the players. This was earlier today on the ESPN.
I think there are times when the media is out of balance, and I encourage NBA players to hold the media accountable when they can, as long as they're okay with being held accountable by the media. I think at times our big challenge in really the game in the modern era is to find that balance. When people talk about the game of basketball, they want to talk about the drama. They want to talk about the X and O's. But I'm telling you, if you do a full show that's all X and O's, that's not going to be any good either. But people like the drama. People like the rivalries, and people like looking at why Luka Doncic has trouble defending Tyrese Halliburton. I think there's room for all of it, and there's room to hold each other accountable. But the finger pointing, I don't think that benefits anybody.
That's a good little shot there by Windy. Let's take a shot at the Laker. Good job by Windhorst. So I did a sports minute today, and this is a sports minute. LeBron James against Stephen A. Smith is entertaining, but it's so pointless. LeBron's fake and sensitive gripe with Stephen A. is silly. And we all know Stephen A. Smith was absolutely never going to swing at LeBron James. It was also lame of LeBron to lie about Brian Windhorst. But the sad part is, this beef is one of the most entertaining parts of the NBA season. But hey, that's par for the course for the NBA these days. We're not talking about the games. We're talking about LeBron James crying over things that Stephen A. Smith didn't say. And how sensitive LeBron James is. And now this has been, what, a week and a half, 2 weeks fight between these two guys? It's wild. It absolutely is. Now, Big Perk, who, by the way, Kendrick Perkins, before he became a big media star, he would come on with us all the time. I haven't heard from Perk in a while. But Big Perk, he calls out LeBron James.
LeBron James needs to stop. He needs to stop. I'm so sick of him with this, how the league is covered, because he wanted to be covered a certain way that he wants it to be covered. See, again, this is what it comes down to with LeBron. And I'm a big LeBron fan. I've been knowing LeBron since 1998, literally, 1998. The problem that I have is, one, everything that comes out of LeBron James' mouth ain't the damn gospel. Number two, we're in 2025. It's a different era. Damn it, you have to adjust. But here's the thing. The coverage of the NBA, in my opinion, has been the same since I've arrived in the NBA, since I grew up as a youngster watching the NBA. Magic Johnson, was he not criticized Kobe Bryant, was he not criticized? In today's game, these players are so sensitive that it just don't make any damn sense.
Maybe we start calling them sensitive, James. I'm serious. I can't deal with this just sensitivity that LeBron James has. I'll play you one more, then we'll take a break. This was Stephen A. Smith on First Take today. Because if you didn't hear him on the Stephen A. Smith show, obviously you've heard him on First Take. That's the bread and butter. Things he hasn't brought up with LeBron.
I suggest that he be happy with the things that I haven't brought up. I never brought up really and never really discussed why you were not at Kobe Bryant's memorial service. I never really brought up or discussed why you did not attend Dwayne Wade's Hall of Fame induction when that man was directly responsible for you capturing a championship for the first time in your career. I brought up none of that. I didn't bring up the fact that even though when people had asked, you had alluded to what had happened tragically to your son, and thank God he's okay with his heart condition. I didn't bring up the fact that even though you couldn't go to the Hall of Fame induction of Dwayne Wade weeks earlier, you were out of the country on business. I didn't bring that up. That's your personal business. I brought up none of these things. But LeBron James, at the end of the day, wants to come at me, and he's walking around pouting. Why would he be pouting? So much so that you go this route. It's very unfortunate that he has done this. It's very unfortunate that he has tried to ostracize me amongst the NBA community and the sports world and beyond.
That's the only clip where Stephen A. Smith doesn't look good. You don't need to bring up his son when it comes to the heart. And also, if you're going to bring up Kobe Bryant, you got to be right about it. And I don't think we should throw Kobe into this situation. And Stephen A. Smith, since, to be fair, said, my apologies and clarification. I misspoke in hour number 1 of First Take today when I intimated that LeBron did not attend Kobe's memorial. I corrected myself in hour 2 when I acknowledged he was indeed in attendance. My mistake. Should not have even broached that subject. It was not my main point. I retract nothing else that I said. Have a nice day. Now, he still got those things wrong. Shouldn't have said that. Issued apology at least. Where is the LeBron James apology for the way that he just treated Brian Windhorst? Because that should happen. That's a joke. Overall, what a pointless beef between these two. Well, Stephen A. said this. And then Stephen A. just goes back, oh, LeBron is attacking me. Wah! It's like, ugh. We should sit those two down, open up a bottle of wine, get them a steak, and have them hash things out. This is like an episode of Real Housewives of New Jersey, if we're being honest. And I watch a lot of Real Housewives of New Jersey. It's like this fight is the dumbest fight I've ever seen. So stupid. But, I have issues with LeBron. I like Stephen A. I'm a fan of Stephen A. Do I always think he goes about everything the right way? No. But that's just not going to be the way that we all live life. You're not always going to do things the right way. So I guess we'll leave it at that. Take a time out. We'll come on back. We'll talk about the Kevin Willard situation next.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
You're listening to the Zach Gelb Show.
All right, we got the Sweet 16 picking up tonight. BYU, Alabama, Maryland, Florida, Arizona, Duke, Arkansas, Texas Tech. It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. The Maryland situation, though, with Kevin Willard, I just think it's rotten. Now, you're in the Sweet 16. It should be a positive time. We know that coaching changes do happen, but they don't need to get nasty here. It's like, I know we talked about Will Wade leaving McNeese to go to NC State, and that came out during the tournament. That came out right before you had McNeese's first-round game, and it didn't impact McNeese. Clemson was god-awful in the first half. Clemson only had 13 points. But at first, it was like, oh, it's unfortunate that you have Will Wade taking another job, which we all understood him taking that next job and, right, going on to better pastures and going to a bigger job like at NC State. You just prefer it doesn't come out before the season's over. But with the landscape of NIL and the transfer portal and coaching changes and the coaching carousel, that's just not being realistic. It's like before every year, right, with bowl games, people go, oh, the coach leaves before the bowl game. Oh, the travesty, all that stuff. You just got to be realistic here. But when it comes to the tournament, like at least in NCAA when it comes to football, I could understand, even though it annoys me, why the transfer portal window is very tough to move around because you have to still get those kids in to be in attendance for, right, spring ball in the spring semester, right, in the winter and spring semesters. Like, I at least understand where the dates are. For college basketball, why can't we wait the transfer portal until at the end of next week, like the Monday after the NCAA tournament? That doesn't make sense to me. But anyway, getting back to the Kevin Willard situation, at least Will Wade was as transparent as a coach has ever been on the way out. Like Nick Saban even. Oh, I won't be the coach of Alabama. And then he ends up being the coach of Alabama. So I'll give credit to Will Wade at least where he goes, we all know what's up. Like, we all know what's going on. Some of my players are going to follow me to the next stop. Some won't. This is the sport right now. So I think initially people weren't happy with Will Wade, but then they win, and his honesty was also refreshing, where it's okay. I'd rather have that than what Kevin Willard's doing right now. It's like, if you want to leave to take the Villanova job, leave to take the Villanova job. It's like, if Mick Cronin wanted to leave UCLA to take the Villanova job, leave to take the Villanova job. If Porter Moser wanted to leave Oklahoma to take the Villanova job, then leave and take the Villanova job. But when you're getting in front of the cameras and you're trashing the NIL of Maryland, you're trashing, right, the structure. And I get it. They just lost their athletic director too. You could be unhappy. You could want to leave, but he's burning the bridge right now. And it really doesn't make sense. And I don't think that this takes away from the players. I don't believe that if Maryland loses tonight, it's because of this Kevin Willard situation. I don't think that's the case, but it's a lot of nonsense where if you're a Maryland fan, you just had this great buzzer beater. You're going into the Sweet 16. You should be excited for it tonight. And even if you lose Kevin Willard, you lose Kevin Willard, but it's all been about the negativity surrounding the athletic department. And you have a university representative, a highly compensated university representative in Kevin Willard coaching this team and just basically trashing the school every single second he gets or making himself out to be a buffoon. It's like, listen to this interaction. So Mike Locksley, the last football coach, basketball coach fight I can remember was when John Calipari at Kentucky said, oh, hey, we're a basketball school. And Mark Stoops was like, oh, that's disrespectful. And this is when you knew Cal was losing a leg to stand on at Kentucky because Kentucky is a basketball school. I know football, right, makes so much money and all that stuff. But Calipari had to apologize to Mark Stoops. Imagine telling that, 6 years ago to Zach Gelb, hey, you need to apologize, like the football coach at Kentucky, to John Calipari. Like, at Kentucky basketball, where we all know Kentucky is a basketball school. So Mike Locksley is not happy with the way that Kevin Willard is basically just publicly trashing the school's problems. And he was asked about that at one of his press conferences. And listen to what Kevin Willard responded to the question with.
You've been very open the last week about trying to get greater NIL share, revenue share. I'm sure you saw Mike Locksley yesterday said he would prefer to keep some of these issues in-house. Why have you felt like kind of bringing this discussion in the open has been the best way to advocate for your program?
Well, I mean, I'll be honest. I think our biggest thing is we got to stop Clayton. He's really good. He shoots the basketball going left 48%. He shoots it right going at 38%. So really the last couple of days, trying to come up with a game plan to stop Clayton, because I just think he's one of the best guards in the country that we've seen.
So he's clearly talking about Walter Clayton Jr. and avoiding the conversation. Walter Clayton Jr. was at Iona with Pitino, and the last 2 years has been at Florida. That's the problem I have with this. Don't have this tough guy energy bashing the school, which some of your claims could be valid. I'm not even saying they're invalid. And then when you get pressed on it because of the firestorm and the bleep storm that you started, you run away from it and avoid the question. Have that same energy. That's what I would say. You brought this upon yourself. So now the question becomes, is he going to stay at Maryland? Is he doing this to just have them make him, and I know they've already made him an offer, but give him everything that he wants to keep him there? And I like Kevin Willard as a coach. Do I think that you need to give him everything in the kitchen sink to stay at Maryland? No, I don't. But to me, I think he's as good as gone. I would be shocked if he's not introduced whenever his team loses the following day as the next men's head basketball coach at Villanova, because from the Villanova standpoint, we've heard 5 names on this job. Chris Collins, right, already got the new deal done. Then, right, there was some speculation about Richard Pitino. He already has accepted the job at Xavier. The other 3 names that you heard are Willard. You've also heard Porter Moser and Mick Cronin. Well, if they wanted Moser, if they wanted Mick Cronin, they could have already offered them the job, and they could have already accepted the job. They clearly want Kevin Willard. So Kevin has a decision to make, and the way that he's talking about it, I think if there was a way to rectify this, I believe you call a little attention to it, but he has jumped all the way into the deep end with this, and it's just obnoxious. Like, I've lost a lot of respect for Kevin Willard, who I liked at Seton Hall, had no problem with them at Maryland, but I've just lost a lot of respect for the way that he's handling this situation. I think it's low class. I really do. And can he go to Villanova? And can he go win a ton of games at Villanova? Yes, because guy's a good basketball coach. But don't start something and then run away from it when people push back at it. That's my problem with Kevin Willard. All right, we'll come on back. We'll get to a news brief next. So this is Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. Here's Zach.
Infinity Sports Network. Sports Flash.
On his opening day in baseball, and lots of home runs so far. The Yankees lead the Brewers 2-1. Bottom of the 5th, Austin Wells led off the game with a home run for New York. Anthony Volpe followed. Vinny Capra going deep for Milwaukee. Tyler O'Neill with a 3-run shot for the Orioles, who lead the Blue Jays 6-0 in the bottom half of the 4th. The Mets and Astros are scoreless in the bottom of the 2nd. No score between the Nationals and Phillies top 3. Red Sox and Rangers are scoreless in the bottom of the 2nd. The Pirates and Marlins also scoreless bottom 2, while Jeimer Candelario with a home run for the Reds, who have an early 1-0 lead over the Giants in the bottom of the 2nd. The Angels and White Sox are underway in scoreless top 2. No score between the Royals and the Guardians in the 2nd. The Padres have just jumped in front of the Braves 2-1 in the bottom half of the 1st. Jackson Merrill with a 2-run single in that one for San Diego. The Sweet 16 tips off tonight with Duke and Arizona in Newark. That follows the first game featuring BYU and Alabama. Out west, it'll be Maryland taking on Florida and Arkansas and Texas Tech. I'm Rich Ackerman.
This is the Infinity Sports Network. Follow us on X. Our handle is INF Sports Network. That's INF Sports Network on X.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. 2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Time for your daily news brief. We get you caught up on the rumors, reports, and reconnaissance from the day in sports.
My mouth is on fire. Oh my God. It's not because of my takes today, because sometimes those could be hot. But Ray Martell ordered pizza today because he needed to make up for an injustice last week with the dollar pizza place that he got. So he got really good pizza. He got a buffalo chicken pie, he got a pepperoni pie, and a plain pie. Now, I'm very particular with my buffalo chicken. You could mess up a buffalo chicken slice very easily. I opened up the box there and I said, ooh, that buffalo chicken looks good. So I just downed a slice during the break, and my mouth is hot right now. Alrighty, this portion of the show is brought to you by Ethos Life, the easy way to get life insurance. In 10 minutes, up to $2 million in coverage, no medical exam, just a few health questions. Get your free quote at checkethos.com. Not available in all states. I may need some life insurance after this pizza. My mouth is on fire right now. Alrighty, news brief time. Let's start things off with Adam Schefter. The Giants and Browns might move up to number one, according to Schefty on the ESPN.
We've also heard the Titans general manager Mike Borgonzi say that he's open to anything. And so he's going to be listening to phone calls. It doesn't mean that the Giants will be able to make it up to one, but I expect the Cleveland Browns and the New York Giants both to make calls, and let's see if there's a team that can come up with an offer that the Titans can't pass up.
Yeah, I just don't know if that Godfather offer is going to be there. Now, if you give a future one, I think you could get him. But if it's just, swapping ones, like going from 1 to 2 or 1 to 3, and you give up a 3 and a 2 or 2 threes, that doesn't do it for me if I'm Tennessee. If I'm Tennessee, I would take Cam Ward, I would. Here's Adam Schefter on ESPN Milwaukee. He says Aaron Rodgers is deciding between the Steelers and retirement.
They both need each other right now, frankly. And that's if Aaron wants to play, which
I'm not convinced yet that he does. Until I hear him say, I want to play, then I can tell you people are asking that question about whether he wants to play. Like, it's come up. People have said to me, hey, are you sure he wants to play? No, I'm not sure. I'm hearing he might not want to play. It shouldn't be that hard. Like, either you want to play for the Steelers or you don't, right? Like, what are we waiting for?
Well, I would agree with Aaron Rodgers, or Adam Schefter, that right now for Aaron Rodgers, it should be down to the Steelers or retirement. I still think it's going to be J.J. McCarthy in Minnesota. But yesterday, Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah had numerous occasions to just emphatically say J.J. is their guy and we are no longer pursuing Aaron Rodgers. And he kind of said both things like, oh, that decision's out of my hands, but we love J.J. We hope he's our guy, blah, blah, blah. So here's Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah cut 2. Are they considering Aaron Rodgers?
Yeah, and I understand that. Aaron Rodgers, this organization is known for a long time on the opposing sideline, talking about a great player, a Hall of Famer. So I understand that. I'll always say it's our job as a personnel group to make sure we're aware of every potential option. And again, we're trying to make sure we solve for scenarios that we don't know could possibly happen. We want to make sure that there's competition in the room to make sure that if you remember last offseason when JJ and Sam were really competing, that brought the best out of both of them. And so you want an environment that's like that, a supportive environment to also just challenge each other but grow and learn and all those different things. And so we're trying to solve for a lot of different things at once. And from all those conversations comes a list of names and maybe an order and an intentional plan on how to best solve for those things. So a player like him, he's always going to be in those conversations. But, from our, delineations at that time, we're happy with where we are going forward. But, obviously the caliber of player and just, all our situations, we had to make our considerations.
Huh? Yes or no? You guys still in on Aaron Rodgers or you're not? Those delineations at this time, at that time. Well, there could be a different time. So they're playing this game, and I wonder if Aaron just comes crawling to the Vikings and say, I'll basically play for pretty much free. And then maybe Minnesota changed their answer. I don't think the juice is worth the squeeze anymore with Aaron Rodgers. And when I say that, I mean on the field. I don't want people calling up and be like, yeah, hypocrite. I'm talking about on the field. I don't think he's a great quarterback anymore. Let's go to Cam Hayward. And by the way, Aaron Rodgers, if this ends with him retiring, what a disgrace. Like, I'm good with him retiring. I'm fine with him retiring. I would actually prefer him to retire. But if he actually does, with how long this has been dragged out, this would just be the ultimate drama move by Aaron Rodgers. Because then what would the conversation be? The moment an injury happens, ooh, that team called Aaron. Ooh, they bring in Aaron. It's like, I don't actually believe he's going to retire. Cam Hayward was on Good Morning Football on NFL Network. Remember, the other week, he was asked about Aaron Rodgers and a recruiting pitch that he would make, and he's like, I don't need to recruit Aaron Rodgers. We're the Pittsburgh Steelers, right? Like, that sells itself. Here's Cam Hayward clarifying his Aaron Rodgers comments.
Yes, it was misconstrued. From my point of view, I was asked the question, would you go to the lengths of going to a darkness retreat to recruit Aaron Rodgers? I said, I'm not doing that. The pitch is, if you want to be a Steeler, be a Steeler. That's all it was. It wasn't meant that I don't like Aaron Rodgers, I'm against it. When I look at our team right now, it would be really cool to have a guy like Aaron Rodgers, but I can't be the guy who gets it over the finish line. I think he's got to make those decisions for himself, but, excited to see what happens.
All righty, I didn't think Cam Hayward was in an easy spot there. And I kind of got what he was saying at the time when you listened to the whole clip, but he felt like he'd have to clarify this. All right, this I love. Will Campbell. The short arms are absolutely ridiculous. Who ever talked about the short arms when you saw this monster play at LSU? And I mean that in a good way, because he was a monster on the football field, just mauling people. Here is Will Campbell at the LSU Pro Day talking about the short arms criticism.
For 2 years, nobody had any measurements on me, and nobody said anything about my play. So now all of a sudden, an arm length decides if I'm a good player or not. I think it's BS. But, any decision makers in the NFL, they don't really care. It's all, people who don't coach, and they don't coach for a reason.
That sounds like a badass. I don't know. I hear that guy, I feel like he could maul it in the trenches for 10 years. That was, you could say what you want about me. I don't give a bleep you. You don't know what you're talking about. I like that from Will Campbell. All right, let's go to my guy, Coach Prime. He was on the Skip Bayless show, and he was asked about on where Shedeur Sanders could get drafted.
Shedeur has told me, he's talked to me intently about all the visits he's had with all the teams, so I know where his heart is. I know where he wants to go. If it's New York, it's New York. If it's Tennessee, if it's Cleveland, if it's still the Raiders, if it's New Orleans, if it's any of those teams that are seeking a quarterback, I'm happy with it, man, because I know what he's going to do to the organization. I know what he's going to do.
Samter, I'll just ask you this question. There was always this thought that Coach Prime was basically going to call try to pull a Manning family and basically force the destination of where Shador was going. It doesn't seem like that has happened yet. I know there was that one erroneous quote that, like, he said that, oh, well, let's hope it's New York. We really want it to be New York, but I guess that wasn't true, and Coach Prime has since refuted that. But I'm kind of happy that Coach Prime went about it this way, and now he's really just saying, wherever he goes, I'm going to be happy. I believe in my son.
I mean, I wonder if it would have been different with a different team, like maybe if it was the Pats. Or, like, maybe there's certain teams that he didn't want him to go to.
I'm just, like, Cleveland. Why would you want to go to Cleveland?
Yeah.
Nothing again. I like Cleveland, but, like,
no, you're
wouldn't
right.
that be the team?
You're right. I mean,
or even the Giants, both of them. I know they have Malik Neighbors and it's New York, but both those franchises have been a clown show.
Maybe Deion just has, like, something against a certain franchise or two from his playing days, and it's not as much about the Mannings believing in the franchise. It's just like, I don't want him to play for those guys.
Yeah.
So
well, you have some at the top of this draft that I would think would be on the no-fly list, and they haven't been so far. So I like that approach from Coach Prime. All righty. That's the news brief. It is Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. Got about a minute 30 here. Let's go to Jamar in Pennsylvania next up on the Zach Gelb Show. Jamar, go ahead.
Gelby, first-time caller, big fan.
Appreciate it.
Just wanted to say, what are we doing here with the Aaron Rodgers deal? Like, are we really waiting around for a 41-year-old quarterback?
You're
or
a Steelers fan?
Should we just suck it up big time?
Okay. So you're a Steelers fan. So let me ask you this. What are you going to do if it's not Aaron Rodgers?
I mean, at this point, I say definitely don't reach for a quarterback in the first round. Been there, done that with Kenny Smallhams. Give me a playmaker first round, wide receiver, running back, and then I guess we roll with Rudolph. I mean, what do you do?
I would sign Aaron Rodgers. This is my thing with the Steelers. I think the Steelers' standard has fallen. They're, to me, not a team that I look at as a Super Bowl contender, but they're still a good team. You need a quarterback for 1 year. I would go with Aaron Rodgers. Mason Rudolph, I already been there, done that. Mason Rudolph's not a good quarterback. Now, if you play Mason Rudolph, maybe you guys fall off, and I appreciate the phone call, the kind words. I'm just up against it, Jamar. You know, maybe you guys fall off and you're actually picking close in the top 10, but I don't think the Steelers are ever going to be bad enough under Tomlin when they're in the top 10 just because of what their record is. Like maybe they trade up like the Devin Bush stuff and things like that. But you got Pickens, you got Metcalf, Warren. At this point, I think what Schefter said is right. Rodgers needs the Steelers, and the Steelers need Aaron Rodgers. So it's messy. It's dramatic right now. But what else are the Steelers going to do? If your answer is Mason Rudolph, that gives your answer. Robbie Hummel going to join us next.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
To infinity and beyond. He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Alrighty, hour number 3 of our radio program. That's right, it is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. Sweet 16 does tip off tonight. You got 4 games: BYU, Alabama, Maryland, Florida, Arizona, Duke, Arkansas, and Texas Tech. And then coming up tomorrow, you got a monster slate: Ole Miss, Michigan State, Kentucky, Tennessee. I think that's my favorite game in the Sweet 16. Michigan, Auburn, and then Purdue going up against Houston. As we're going to see after this Thursday and Friday stretch who does get into the Elite Eight. And after Sunday, we will know who's going to be joining us in San Antonio for the Final Four, as we will be doing 2 shows down in San Antonio on Thursday and Friday. We should get Robbie Hummel on in just a bit. Oh, he's ready right now. Robbie Hummel joins us right now. Obviously does a great job. CBS, Turner throughout the NCAA tournament, also on Westwood One, and he's kind enough to join us for a few minutes on the Zach Gelb Show. Robbie, appreciate the time. Thanks so much for doing this. How you been?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. So let me start you off with the Kevin Willard situation, because last week when Will Wade at NC State was going down, some people were rubbed the wrong way with how openly he was talking about that, but at least he was being transparent, so I could at least, looking back on it, respect it. This Kevin Willard situation, I think he's going to Villanova, but it just seems so nasty. Right before you're getting into a Sweet 16 game, he's basically fighting with the university. This is ugly.
Yeah, it's a really interesting situation, and I can't remember anything really unfolding the way that this has, especially when your team is as good as Maryland's is. And I've seen them a lot this year throughout the regular season. I was with them in Seattle. They've had a heck of a year. So for it to be like the last 2 weeks of this, it's a bit strange. And it's definitely kind of been out in the open, maybe not as transparent, like you said, as what Will Wade was, but certainly his press conference where we talked about not feeling supported and not feeling like he's got the full backing at Maryland to make the program what he feels like it can be. You don't see that very often. But certainly with the AD leaving and going to SMU, it's a very unique situation, kind of a perfect storm on top of the fact that your team is having one of the best years that Maryland has had in the last 20 years.
And I'm just looking I'm just looking at this logically too. It's like you look at Villanova right now and you see, okay, there was rumors that Collins is going to go there. He got a new deal done. Patino was already introduced as the new head coach of Xavier. So it's like the only three other names we heard were Willard, Porter Moser, and you go through this, maybe even Mick Cronin leaves UCLA. It seems like since the job hasn't been given out anywhere else, that it's kind of Willard's job to lose. And I would be surprised if he stays at this point.
Yeah, I'm with you. There's just like the white elephant in the room it's kind of hanging around. And Villanova's a great job. Obviously, Jay had all the success that he did there as the head coach. And I think deep down, Kevin Willard has those Big East roots just from the sense of being at Seton Hall. He's an East Coast guy. And you think about, for now, some of the revenue sharing maybe advantages that the Big East could have because you're not supporting a football program. So it's so weird to watch this all go down while at the same time thinking, well, Maryland has a team that could make the Final Four. It's going to be hard. They're going to have to beat a great Florida team, but their starting five is so talented and they've had a great year. So it's unfortunate that that's kind of distracting away from that. And, it should be all on the team and the players and the game, but it is as unique of a situation as I can ever remember.
And maybe I'm wrong on this, but when we get to the transfer portal, you look in college football, people say, oh, they should move the transfer portal window till after the national championship game. And then just because of the school calendar, there's complications with that. For the NCAA tournament, what's the harm in pushing back the transfer portal till the Tuesday after the national championship game or Wednesday after?
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense, but I did read something where they're afraid of having the window leak into some of the high school recruiting events that occur in April. But I just feel like you could move all that back a little bit. Just make it to where you're not up against school. I get where the semester issue for football, that makes total sense to me. But I feel like that there could be some things done to where, all right, we're gonna knock the high school window back, but we're also going to move the portal window back so that coaches aren't literally preparing for NCAA tournament games. And then on top of that, setting up visits, setting up Zoom, setting up all this stuff to recruit so that your team next year has players. It's really a strange situation. And, I'm doing The Crown for Fox, and we're kind of watching even that type of thing. You're not even sure who's playing in those games right now. So preparing for that is a bit of a challenge.
Yeah. You do a good job with it, though. Robbie Hummel here with us. All righty. So for the games tonight, I look at BYU, Alabama, Maryland, Florida. I think Bama and Florida are going to win, but I expect both those games to be high-octane offense and it to be a shootout.
No, I agree with you. And certainly I think the depth issue could catch up to Maryland just because Florida's depth is a little bit better. And I think maybe if you look at their backcourt, Walter Clayton is just so high-end. He's such a high-level player. And I like Maryland's guards, but they need to play better. They were not great in Seattle, especially the first half of that Colorado State game. So Florida does a little bit of everything, but so does Maryland. I think Maryland's starting five, as long as they're not in foul trouble and they're healthy, they've got five guys on the floor that can really hurt you. And then I just wonder a little bit about BYU's defense with Bama. Not that Alabama's defense is amazing, But BYU has really struggled on that end of the floor. And if you struggle defensively against Bama, good luck, because they are getting out there. They're shooting threes. Mark Sears is terrific. I agree with you. I think it probably is Florida and Alabama moving on.
If you asked me a month ago who was going to be in the championship game, I would have said Auburn and I would have said Duke. Then right before the start of the tournament, Auburn lost 3 out of their last 4. I started to fade Auburn a little bit, but after what they showed up against Creighton, they've been back in my circle of trust. I rank those teams Duke 1, Florida 2, and then Auburn 3. Do you feel like those are the 3 best teams remaining?
Yeah, I think so. And I might have Auburn ahead of Florida, even with the late struggles. I saw them last year in the tournament. I saw them lose to Yale. And I just think when you've got that type of motivator over the course of, they've been hearing about that since March last year. And a lot of those guys are back. They're as old as anybody. You've got a player of the year candidate in Janai Broome. So I think I'd go Auburn too, even with, I agree with you, the late kind of swoon. But Florida's right there. Those to me are the 3 best teams, hands down, in the tournament left.
It's a good point you bring up because, right, we know the most famous instance, Virginia losing to a 16 and then going and winning the national championship the following year. We know what happened with your Purdue team just a year ago. So I never even thought about it that way. When you get guys back, that motivation, and maybe there obviously is a heightened awareness when if you just get through the first weekend, maybe it gets the monkey off your back and then you start looking like the team that you have for most of the year.
Well, and like they're old. They're older than NBA teams, so you've got a lot of experience there on top of the fact that you've got the extra motivation from last year.
When you get to Arkansas and Texas Tech, what's your lean on this one today? You're rolling with Cal, or do you think that Texas Tech is going to find a way to advance the Elite Eight?
I'm going to, it was funny. I do a podcast with Jeff Goodman, and we were talking, and we did Final Four picks back in, I think it was like October. And I just watched one of those non-secret scrimmages where Arkansas looked like world beaters. And I was like, you know what? Arkansas is one of my Final Four teams, which obviously looked terrible during the year because they were, not what they have been here over the last couple of weeks. But they've certainly put it together. They've always been talented. I think I haven't heard because I've been here in Indianapolis and kind of locked in on these games. Is Thiero playing?
He's supposed to play 15 minutes from what was said the other day.
All right, well, you get him back in the fold. I'm going to go with Arkansas. I'm going to go with my preseason Final Four pick that looked terrible for a long time and all of a sudden has aged a little bit better. I'll stick with the Razorbacks.
It's kind of cool, too, the triangle that's happened here, because you had Cal take the Arkansas job, and then Mark Pope goes to Kentucky, and then Young comes over from the Suns to BYU. The fact that all 3 of these guys in their first year, where there's been ups and downs, have been able to get to the Sweet 16. I think it's an awesome story for college basketball.
No, I agree. And 3 guys that have kind of had totally different backgrounds. Cal, a guy that's had success at multiple places and been to a bunch of Final Fours. And you've got Mark Pope, who's getting his first taste of NCAA tournament success. And you've got, Kevin Young, this is his first year of being in college basketball. So it's 3 very different things, but you're right. 3 very relatable guys that kind of have a little bit of synergy, I guess you could say, with their departures and arrivals.
I know that Arizona-Oregon game was bonkers. It looked like Arizona was going to gag that game away. How much of a chance do you give them to beat Duke, who, like we said, I thought is the best team in the country right now?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's a long shot, but I will say with Caleb Love, you ride the wave. And against Oregon, you ride the good wave. He was spectacular. He's efficient. He's making the right decisions. He's making shots. He's making big plays into the game. Arizona passes the airport test. I mean, you look at their size, their athleticism. There's a lot to like about them. And I even, I watched the Big 12 Tournament Championship against Houston to prepare for those games out in Seattle. And I came away, I think they had the ball down 2 with 25 seconds to go. They easily could have won the game. You got to make one more play and then get a stop. But to do that against a Houston team that's had so much success in the Big 12 this year and run through that league, they're right there in that one. I think they can give Duke a game. They've got the bodies, the size, the athleticism. They play with pace. They get on the offensive glass. You've got a guy that could be a star. And I think Jaden Bradley's improvement throughout the year, and KJ Lewis too. Like, you've got some big physical guards that are athletic. Now, do I think they'll beat Duke? No, but I do think that they can challenge them in ways that a lot of teams can't, because they have the size, they have the athletes, and you've got a guy that could be a star.
Robbie Hummel does a great job, Westwood One, as a color analyst. He'll be on the call, Kentucky, Tennessee, and also Purdue and Houston. Let's get to that Kentucky, Tennessee. This is the game that I circle. This is the one that I'm most intrigued and fired up for. I don't have a damn clue how it's going to go. I know Kentucky beat Tennessee twice during the season. But, man, this one should really be a fun one that you got coming up tomorrow evening.
Yeah, it should. And anytime you get an NCAA tournament matchup where the teams play for a third time, anything can happen. The baffling thing has been, the fact that Kentucky, although a good three-point shooting team on the year, Tennessee's three-point defense has been elite. But they've been torched from three. Both those games, they give up 12 of 24 from the three-point line. And that's a shocking number for a Rick Barnes defensive-minded defense that's been one of the best throughout college basketball. Chaz Lanier is going to have to play better. He's 3 for 17 from 3 in 2 games, and clearly his splits in wins versus losses, like he is the X factor in this game. Kentucky's done a nice job on him. I'm amazed, honestly, that Mark Pope has done the job that he has, as his team has dealt with injuries and guys that are in and out of the lineup. Whether that's Jackson Robinson, who's out for the season, or even a guy like Andrew Carr, who played, I think, a minute in one of the games and didn't play in the other. So they're going to have to certainly match the physicality and toughness that Tennessee brings every night. But the fact that you beat them twice, Kentucky's got to feel confident. Tennessee's got to feel like they're due. You've heard all week long, all those guys are talking about how we didn't play like ourselves, whether it's Zakai Ziegler or Jemai Meshack or any of the guys that have been on the podium for Tennessee. So it should be awesome. The fact that you get a rivalry game in the Sweet 16, it doesn't get better than that. And should be a really, really highly competitive game.
Yeah, I also think a fascinating storyline here is the perception around Rick Barnes, who hasn't been to a Final Four since the early 2000s. It's like you look at Bruce Pearl, right? I know he's had a recent team at Auburn go to the Final Four. He's chasing a national championship. Kelvin Sampson has been to 2 Final Fours, and he's chasing a national championship. It feels like from a national pop level, we're not talking about maybe this Tennessee team, finally getting Rick Barnes and Addy.
No, I agree with you. I totally agree. And for even Tennessee in general, they've been knocking on the door. They've had some really close calls to get there. Last year sticks out, that game in Detroit against Purdue, where they're just a little bit short. But he's done such a good job there. And what a hire. The SEC has done a great job of hiring good basketball coaches and committing resources to men's basketball. And I think it shows. It shows with how much success they had this year. It shows with their tournament success. But I kind of feel like Rick Barnes got a little bit of that party started, where you start bringing in guys that are really high level and you get commitments from your schools, and look at how that's paid off. It's paid off in a big way for the SEC.
Let's talk about Purdue and Houston. I know you're a Boilermaker, but what a job Painter's done. I know he's been a good coach for a while. He hasn't got the national championship, but you lose Edey. And to be now 1 win away from going to an Elite Eight and 2 wins away from going to another Final Four is pretty remarkable. Obviously, that's not going to be an easy matchup going up against Houston. A lot of people believe Duke and Houston have the 2 easiest roads to get to the Final Four. But how does Purdue make this a game and maybe pull off the upset?
Well, they're going to have to be the toughest they've been all year long. And it starts on the glass. Houston is relentless at getting to the offensive glass. They're as good as anybody from a mentality and a mindset of just looking to crush you there. And they also get you in the turnover margin. So I think those are really the 2 stats to look for. What's the rebounding margin look like, and what's the turnover margin look like? And the unfortunate thing for Purdue is that kind of their weakness, and it's come and gone, it's waned a little bit, but when they've gotten themselves in trouble, they haven't been great rebounding, and they haven't been great taking care of the basketball. So those certainly factor in. And then I think when you talk about Houston, those have been constants, the not turning it over, the forcing turnovers, the getting you on the glass, those have been consistently what Kelvin Sampson has brought to the table. But for this iteration of this Houston Cougars team, they shoot it from 3, not a crazy volume, but Uzan, Cryer, Emmanuel Sharp, those guys can hurt you from the 3-point line. Cryer has had a phenomenal year, 3rd-team All-American. Sharp was the MOP at the Big 12 tournament. Uzan has improved as anybody throughout the season, as I think you could say in major college basketball. So it's also a big game for Purdue. You've got to guard your man because you can't be in rotation. If you're always coming over to help, obviously that's good for the offense because you're beating your primary defender, but you're also in a bad spot to rebound the ball. So they've got to contain the bounce initially, and that could be a challenge, I think, for Purdue's guards against this Houston backcourt.
On the way out with Robbie Hummel, you could catch him Westwood 1 coming up tomorrow, Kentucky and Tennessee, and also Purdue and Houston. My favorite coaching matchup is Chris Beard up against Tom Izzo. The raspiness of both those guys' voices are just going to be kind of fun to see them be yelling, and the way that both those two teams play with a certain level of toughness.
Well, I give Tom Izzo a lot of credit. You know, I was around him a good amount this year because I did a lot of Michigan State's games, especially down the stretch. And for a guy that's been at it for 30 years as the head coach, and then all the years before that with Judd Heathcote as an assistant at Michigan State, man, that fire, it still burns. That thing, he's not going anywhere.
Get him started on the portal. He won't stop, man. That was awesome, the portal stuff.
That was awesome.
You
know what? I totally understand it. You feel like you owe it to your players, and you know, I'm sure some of his assistants are doing some of that stuff because you kind of have to be. But I love that his attention is fully focused on his own team. And man, that dude, he's like the godfather of the Big Ten. And he was like that when I was playing. You know, that's getting to be 13, 14 years ago. But he's been around a long time. He's one of the GOATs for sure, and I love his passion. I certainly respect that about him.
You know, I had Chris Beard on the other day, and I talked to him about his future, and I go, it's a respect to the kind of coach that you are and where you've gone and how you've won, especially with what you did at Texas Tech. You know, we know the circumstance that led to him being at Ole Miss, but is this kind of just a nice sip of coffee for 2 to 4 years, or is this a long-term stop for Chris Beard? And, you know, I wasn't expecting him to spill his heart out to us, but he basically just said, we're just getting started at Ole Miss. Could this be a long-term thing for Chris Beard at Ole Miss, or do you think when the next big job goes up with maybe the way that he redeemed himself, that's where it will end up going somewhere else?
I would say that anything is on the table. You know, Sean Miller thought he'd maybe be back at Xavier for the long term. He is not there anymore. So I would assume that he will be there as long as that is the best opportunity and it gives him the best chance to win. And if that changes, then we might see him somewhere else.
Now, I think I have some tweets from when Roy Williams retired that Chris Beard should be the coach at UNC, with Hubert Davis maybe on the hot seat entering next year. Maybe that could be a destination.
It would be possible.
Yeah. Last thing I'll ask you, then we'll let you run. Dusty May could be one of my favorite coaches in the country. This time of the year, he just knows how to win. Auburn should win this game, but I'll be curious if it's a close one with 3 minutes left, just the way that Auburn would deal with that pressure, especially with May's been able to do at now FAU and then also Michigan.
Yeah, Dusty's done a great job. You know, you think about returning really 2 guys from last year's Michigan team that wasn't very good and going out in the portal and doing just a phenomenal job of, I think, identifying who can be good, who can fit together, and then also having the foresight. And I don't know if he saw it to this level, but having the ability to see, all right, I can play Vlad Golden with Danny Wolf, and we can kind of make this 4-5 pick and roll work, and we can get these guys to be cohesive and be one of the better front courts in the Big Ten Conference. I do worry about Michigan turning the ball over because they do that a ton. And Auburn is athletic and long, and they can force turnovers at a high clip. So that to me is the thing to watch for in this game. But you know what? That's a tough guard with Wolf and Golden. And if Roddy Gale can do what he did in their first weekend, talented dude, hasn't had a great year, especially in conference play, but his best game of the season by far. You know, they've got some guys in the backcourt that can go. Donaldson's been better over the last couple weeks since that losing streak. I like their team. I just really worry they could throw it all over the court tonight.
You know, for Purdue, now you can see him all over the place and listen to him as well. CBS, Fox, Turner, Westwood One. He is Robbie Hummel. Robbie, appreciate it. Thank you.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
There you go. Robbie Hummel joining us to preview what is going to be, I think, a really fun Sweet 16 over the next 2 days. Appreciate him jumping on board with us. 20 past the hour, overdue for a break, so we'll take one here. We'll come on back, and we'll do a little Sweet 16, just based off the Sweet 16. Nothing more than that, just the Sweet 16 games. Who could be your winner and who could be your loser when we look at the coaches for the games on Thursday and Friday.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 4 minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Welcome back to the Zach Gelb Show.
Alrighty, it is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. So we just plowed through the Sweet 16 games with Robbie Hummel. Now let's just do it this way. If just for the Sweet 16, the matchups on Thursday and Friday, if you tell me there's a coach who could be the biggest winner and a coach who could be the biggest loser, who would that coach be? I start off with the winner. I think it could be Chris Beard. I think Chris Beard, his stock is already kind of rejuvenated. We know what led to his dismissal at Texas, even though there's some ambiguities about what actually happened on that night. But he ended up at Ole Miss. He's a much better basketball coach, just X's and O's, than what Ole Miss is used to. And to see the success this quickly, where you get 20 wins in your first season, you just miss out on the NCAA tournament, the next year you're in, and now you're a 6 seed, and not only that, you've won 2 games, and I think they're very much so alive up against Michigan State. I'll be taking the points tomorrow with the Rebels of Ole Miss, Lahadi Toddy. I'll plus the 3.5 points. But if Chris Beard beats Tom Izzo, that's the second time in his career, in his second opportunity in the NCAA tournament. Last time was at Texas Tech, where he beat Michigan State, where Texas Tech punched their ticket to the national championship game. I think the national stock of Chris Beard, he will become that guy. And I know there could be some complications with off the court, but with how you're removed from that, right or wrong, and how you are now in a spot where you're at another institution, he could basically handpick whatever job he wants next. And I think Chris Beard is fine at staying at Ole Miss for a little bit. I think what he's done at Ole Miss has been a very good job, and he is in the SEC, which is right now the preeminent, for this past year, the preeminent conference in college basketball. But if bigger jobs open up, if a huge job opens up this year, or let me say next year, because I don't think he'll take a job this cycle, or the year after that, he will be right there at the tippy top of many of these teams' lists. Like, look at what happened with Dusty May. All right, and he got Michigan, which is not, for basketball, a premier job, but he was like that young up-and-coming coach with his run. And even Porter Moser, right, when he had that one run at Loyola Chicago, and then he also got back to a Sweet 16 after doing a Final Four a few years later with Krutwig, who, one of my favorite college basketball players of all time with that mustache. It was awesome. But anyway, like Porter had to go to Oklahoma. Oklahoma's not a premier college basketball job. So Chris Beard already had the crazy run at Texas Tech. And now he's at Ole Miss doing this again. It's not as if it's a Dusty May and it's a one-off, or a Porter Moser and it's a one-off. I'm talking about you go into a level of you could get whatever job you want. So I just think a win this, on Friday for Chris Beard puts him right once again in the spotlight, the national spotlight, where everyone looks around and they go, just pound for pound, X's and O's, this dude's one of the best basketball coaches in the country. So I think the guy with the most on the line in terms of winning this weekend is actually Chris Beard, is the way that I answer that. Samter, how do you answer this one just for the winners?
If I didn't know that you were going Chris Beard, I may have gone Chris Beard. Mm-hmm. I was leaning towards that, but then I started looking through it. Kelvin Sampson has done nothing but win. Yeah. He was as high as the number 1 seed last year, as high as the number 1 a team in the country 2 years ago. He was up to number 2 this year, but he's going backwards, right? He went to a Final Four 4 years ago, then an Elite 8 3 years ago, and in the last 2 years, he's been knocked out in the Sweet 16. If he goes out in the Sweet 16 again, that's a bad news for him. If he moves on, he gets to the Elite 8, and he makes a move on and keeps going forward. Kelvin Sampson, Houston still has this kind of, to me, it feels like almost a perception problem. They're Houston. I know they're in the Big 12. They're in a Power 5 conference, Power 4 conference.
They've been phenomenal for the last 4 or 5 years.
Yes, but in my mind,
as good as any team in the country, yes, without winning a championship.
But in my mind, I think of Houston. I'm like, oh, Houston. They're not a blue blood. They're not a big school. They're not.
They're not a blue blood.
They're not a power. Like, even though they are in a Power 4 conference, I don't think of them as like a Power 4 school. I think that this is the chance for Kelvin Sampson to turn around the entire perception of what Houston is and what they can be. If they fall to Purdue as a number 1 seed and fail to get to another Elite 8, that's a lot of trouble. So I think that he has a lot to gain, not just from winning for himself and getting back to a Final Four, but for the perception of what Houston is and what they can do.
You know what? It's funny the way that you argued it, and you did a good job arguing it, because I would argue he could be the biggest loser this weekend. I was thinking of it that way, because if he gets to an Elite 8, let's say he wins a Sweet 16 game, he gets to the Elite 8, I still don't think you get that national praise for right now beating Purdue, which Purdue's been a good program. But what did we all say about Houston going into this tournament? Them or Duke, pick your poison on who has the easiest road to get there. Like, I think Kelvin Sampson's in this journey that the only time he's going to get the praise is if he gets to another Final Four, which would be his third in his career, or you finally get to the championship game and you win it all. So I would actually say Kelvin Sampson, I could just as easily answer it, him be the biggest loser, because if you do lose, it's a missed opportunity in a year where that right side of the bracket, a lot of us have just been picking Duke, Houston, meet up in the Final Four, winner goes to the championship game. But I digress to actually who is my biggest loser, and that's Rick Barnes. You know, Rick Barnes has aged with the times. Rick Barnes, you know, he's 70 years old. You know, he doesn't look 70 years old, but he's been around a long time. How many more years, A, can you do this? And how many more years can you have a team that has the potential to go to a Final Four and maybe win you a championship? Now, he has not been to the Final Four since 2003. Since then, 04 Sweet 16, 05 round to 64 out in the first round, 06 Elite 8, 07 round to 32, 08 Elite 8, 09 round to 32, 2010 All at Texas round to 64, 2011 round to 32, 2012 round to 64. Did not make the NCAA tournament in 2013, round to 32 in 2014, and in 2015 the round to 64. So outside of 2 runs since getting to that Final Four, you know, yeah, he had 2 Elite 8s and 116, but outside of that, it's been stuck getting eliminated out of the first weekend. And then he goes to Tennessee, doesn't make the tourney the first 2 years. Then round to 32, Sweet 16, no tourney because of COVID. Round to 64, round to 32. Last year gets to the Sweet 6, or 2 years ago gets to Sweet 16. Last year gets to the Elite 8. It's like for Rick Barnes, you have a Tennessee team that, yes, they have lost to Kentucky twice this year. You can't beat them once in a season, right? And this is like Kentucky. They've had a marvelous season, but they're not humming yet. They're not fully developed yet where they should be under Mark Pope. I think there's a lot on the lines for Rick Barnes this weekend at Tennessee. And I don't want to say it's his last chance to get to his first Final Four since 2003. But how many more times are you going to have these really good teams and be a 2 seed and be in this spot and be 2 wins away from going to a Final Four and you come up short? I think he could be the biggest loser of this weekend because we'd not only be losing 3 times in a season to Kentucky, but it'd be also squandering away another opportunity to get back to a Final Four, something you haven't done since the early 2000s when Zach Gelb was in middle school. That's how long ago that was for Rick Barnes. All righty, Samter, who could be potentially your biggest loser this weekend?
To me, I look at the biggest loser. I think of the team that has the farthest to fall. Who is the consensus best team in this tournament?
I would say Duke.
It is Duke, which means that if they don't win this game, they are losing the most. And for a guy like John Shire filling in for Coach K, second round 2 years ago in his first year with Duke, lost in the Elite 8 last year. If they, as the best team with the consensus clear best player in the country in Cooper Flagg, who is now healthy and dominating, if they lose this game, we just heard Robbie Hummel say, Arizona can make this a game. Arizona has the size to bang those bodies and to get in there and to make this a game. If they lose to Arizona, who had ups and downs throughout the season, if they lose to a guy like Tommy Lloyd, who struggled in the tournament, I mean, John Shire, the questions are going to start popping up all over the place that he can't get deep into the tournament.
So I think John Shire is a good coach, but there's a difference of being a good coach and then the coach of Duke. Like, you're at Duke, you got to go win a championship. And I didn't think that had to immediately happen right away for John Shire. Like, I sometimes I think the criticism is a bit premature for John Shire. Like, if John Shire loses, you know, in this game, no one's going to, I'm sure some idiot will be like, fire him, right? But no one's actually going to take that talk seriously. And you're right? 2 years ago, lost the round of 32. Last year, lost in the Elite 8. That's 2 years getting your feet wet. But when you have a team like this, that is just an unbelievably, ridiculously talented team, and you got the preeminent player in the country, you know, you're the head basketball coach at Ole Miss, right? And you're John Shire. All right, you lose this weekend. It is what it is. You know, you're at BYU, who has the top player coming in, and you lose that weekend, and you're John Shire. It is what it is. At Duke, the 2-year grace period in terms of you're going to get to a Final Four, you're going to win a championship with the team that he has, I'm with you. It does go out the window, where I think if they lose this game to Arizona, it will be missed opportunity, bad loss. John Shire has been a good coach so far, but you're following in the footsteps of the large shoes of a coach that he played for and won a championship with in Coach Krzyzewski. The Duke standard. And you got to go prove that you can not only get to a Final Four, but win a championship. And by the way, they are tied for the largest favorite this weekend. Auburn, 9.5 points favorite to Michigan, and Duke is a 9.5 point favorite to Arizona. If you had to take a guess there, Samter, so like the three biggest favorites this weekend, or Thursday and Friday, Michigan, Auburn, you have Duke and Arizona, both 9.5, and then Houston's an 8.5 point favorite up against Purdue. If you were to tell me one of those schools were to fall this weekend, right, one of those number one seeds, and take Florida out of it just because of the spreads are so big, just with the way that we're talking about this, Auburn, Houston, Duke, who do you think is the most likely to fall in these next 2 days?
I mean, I hate to say it, but I think I have to go Houston. Purdue was the runner-up last year. They had pedigree. Braden Smith's a monster. Painter knows how to win. I like Houston. I just think that Purdue is a tougher matchup. I'm not sold on Arizona. I'm an ASU guy, so I'm a little bit biased. And Michigan, I think Michigan is playing really well, but I feel like Michigan is kind of
they'll meet their match.
Yeah, I think Auburn, we talked about how they struggled late in the season, but I kind of feel like they was like, all right, let's kind of, they were looking ahead, it feels to me. And now Auburn is kind of putting it back together. The way they played against Creighton, that looks like the Auburn team that was really dominating middle of the season. So I think Auburn is pretty safe there too.
Let me preface this by saying I do not think Duke is going to lose. I do not, but I actually think the answer is Duke. Just because Caleb Love going on like one last bleep you type of game.
If Caleb Love beats
that
Duke
would be the
again,
way.
Oh, I hate Caleb Love so much.
But that would be the way. Like, I love Dusty May. I don't think they're beating Auburn. Purdue, the fact that they're in the Sweet 16 this year with what they lost is a remarkable accomplishment. I just like Houston. They got a little scary up against Gonzaga. I think a game like that you need to get scared a little bit. You survive in your advance. I don't think Michigan and Purdue are going to be able to knock down those opponents. Now, I don't believe Arizona's going to win, but if you give me one team because of one player, I guess, Caleb Love is just on and just goes absolutely off and is just ridiculously good. That would be the way. So that's
top
how I answer
5
that.
Most disliked players in college basketball history.
Caleb Love?
Hate the guy.
Oh, well, this is your Fugazi, Arizona State. Arizona
No, well, it's also because I've always loved
fake outrage.
But
fake outrage.
It's also I always loved Coach K, and Caleb Love was the one who basically just ended it in the Final Four for UNC and Duke, and that was the end of Coach K's career. I would have loved to have seen him go out with another title. So I hated Caleb Love for that game.
A lot of
then
people
he goes
love
to
Caleb Love for
Arizona and he beats ASU in like some miraculous shot, and he has all these. I hate Caleb Love. Hate Caleb Love. Boo. Boo. Caleb Love.
I liked you better when you were talking Arizona State with Cam Scattaboo and Sam Levitt and Kenny Dillingham. The basketball stuff.
Sam Levitt's on the preseason Heisman watch list already. Let's go. Let's go.
I think we were early on the Sam Levitt train.
We were right there, man.
We had him on when nobody was talking about him. So
That's very
true. They better, return those favors this year when we get to preview Arizona State.
Let's go Devils.
Or else we're going to put a fork in the Arizona State program if they don't continue to get us some guests as we gear up towards the college football season. All righty. We'll come on back. One more segment to play update time first. Here's Zach.
Infinity Sports Network Sports Flash.
Well, lots of baseball on opening day, and the Orioles off to a huge start in Toronto, leading Toronto by a score of 9-2 now in the bottom of the 7th. As Adley Rutschman started things off with a homer in the first. Cedric Mullins with 2 today for Baltimore. Also today in the Bronx, the Yankees on top of the Brewers 4-1 as Austin Wells led off for the Yanks with a home run. First Yankee catcher ever to hit leadoff. The Astros in front of the Mets 3-0 in the bottom half of the 5th, while the Nationals on top of the Phillies 1-0 top 7. Mackenzie Gore 13 strikeouts through 6. Keibert Ruiz, a home run for the Nats in that one. Bottom 6, Red Sox and Rangers even at 2. It's the Pirates in front of the Marlins 2-1, top 6. The Reds lead the Giants 3-2, bottom 6. The White Sox on top of the Angels 3-0, top 7. The Guardians have a 4-3 lead over the Royals, bottom of the 6th, while the Braves lead the Padres 4-3, top of the 4th, and still reign in St. Louis. The Sweet 16 tips off tonight in Newark. First up will be BYU and Alabama, followed by Arizona and Duke, and out west in San Francisco, it's Maryland and Florida with Arkansas and Texas Tech, the second part of that doubleheader. I'm Rich Eck.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Hey, this is Howie. And this is Nick. From the Backstreet Boys. And you're listening to the Zach Gelb Show. And guess what? Zach is back. All right.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
Oh, my God, we're back again.
All righty, wrapping up shop on an opening day Thursday. It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. Also, we got the Sweet 16, 4 games tonight. Yeah, I look at BYU, Alabama. I expect a lot of points. That's the highest over-under here, and it's not even close. 175.5 is the over-under here with both these teams. So if you're trying to hit the over in this one, man, that's a lot of points. Even though I think this is going to be a shootout, 175.5. You got to get to 176. That's a ton of points. But both these teams, the way they play offense, and BYU, the way they shot the ball the other night, obviously capable of it. Nate Oates, too. Yeah, I was a big fan of his at Buffalo. 3 out of 4 years at Buffalo. Took over a good program with Coach Hurley. They went to the NCAA tournament. He won 2 NCAA tournament games at Buffalo. And it's pretty damn impressive. And then you go to Alabama. Last time we talked about Alabama basketball. Seriously. Sweet 16, round of 64. Sweet 16 last year in the Final Four. And you take a glance at their team. Alabama, I would like to see Duke, Alabama. That, out of all the potential final Elite Eight matchups, right? You got Auburn, Michigan, Ole Miss, Michigan State. 2 will get there. Florida, Maryland, Texas Tech, Arkansas. 2 will get there. And then you got Duke, Arizona, BYU, Alabama. And then 2 will get there. Then Houston, Purdue, Kentucky, Tennessee. I want to see Duke, Alabama. That would have a Final Four feel in the Elite Eight. It really would. And that would come your way. Obviously, that would be on, I would say Saturday would be the matchup for that one. So that would be fun to see. But you take a glance at BYU and Alabama. I expect this to be high scoring. I do like Alabama to win. And I know Coach Young has done a great job in his first year at BYU, taking over for Coach Pope, who is now at Arkansas. I just think the offense of Alabama is just going to be slightly better than BYU. And you take a look at the SEC territory with BYU, with the Alabama. I think that's going to play big dividends here. BYU, by the way, if you want to look at an SEC opponent this year, BYU early in the season, they lost to Ole Miss 96-85. I could see that being a similar type of game tonight. They lost to Houston, right? 86-55. I know that's not an SEC team, but, I'm talking about some of the marquee teams in the country. I just think this is, lost to Houston again, 74-54. I think this is a different level of competition. So I could see what happened with Ole Miss earlier in the year being a little bit worse here for BYU tonight. But if you made me take a pick, I was probably going to say the over most of the week. I'd actually lay the points with Alabama. I lay them minus the 4.5, so I like Alabama tonight. Maryland, Florida. I'm kind of rooting against Kevin Willard in this one. Sorry to the Crab 5, but Kevin Willard has been really crappy in these press conferences. So I like that what Coach Golden has done with Florida. It's good to have Florida back in the mix. The UConn game, they won a game that they shouldn't have had. And, hey, Elijah Martin, we know what he did at FAU. Walter Clayton, what he did at Iona now last few years at Florida. I just think that duo is going to be too strong, and Florida will prevail. 6.5 points is a lot of points. You know, what is Maryland going to look like after the craziness of that buzzer beater? That's going to be something interesting to watch. But I do think Florida is going to win the game. Duke, hey, it comes down to Caleb Love's got to basically be the boogeyman. That's what it's going to come down to. If Caleb Love is in his bag, if Caleb Love is on fire, it still may not be enough. But Duke is pound for pound the best team in the country. I do like the Dukies to get the job done tonight. And then you get into Arkansas, Texas Tech. I'm taking the points here with the Razorbacks, little pig suey, plus 5.5. But Adu Thiero, it's going to be interesting to see if he plays tonight. Because Calipari, he went on McAfee on Tuesday. You know, not the biggest name McAfee got this week. That was LeBron James with his nonsense and the whole stupid fighting with Stephen A. Smith and LeBron James. But he said he was going to be available. I heard that clip on Tuesday. He's like to play like about 15 minutes or so. Well, yesterday, he didn't practice. And he hasn't played since the end of February with a hyperextended knee. So he has not played since February 22nd. Now, Calipari, when talking yesterday, and there's been no update yet, this is a late night game tonight, he said, we'll see tomorrow, Calipari said. If we had 8 to 10 minutes from him in case of foul trouble, it would help, but we're fine. So you thought you were getting him back. Even when we talked to Robbie Hummel, I thought he was coming back. And then you see this latest update, maybe not, maybe only if they need him. And right now, with the way Arkansas has done the last 2 games up against Kansas, which is a close game, and then up against St. John's, also a close game, but they were the better team. They have not missed his presence, but you get him back, man. That would really be something. But then, you know, what could he do and how effective he could be and how much rust is there to knock off, and can he even do that in the 8 to 10 minutes that he gets? So I'll take Arkansas to win the game. Maybe I'm being disrespectful to Texas Tech, and I'll regret that one. But I feel good about Alabama, Florida, and Duke, and then I'll roll with the double-digit seed with Pig Suey and Arkansas. All righty, that will do it for a Thursday edition of the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. Big thanks to Alex Rodriguez, A-Rod, for joining us about 2 hours ago. If you missed any of that, you can use the rewind function on the free Odyssey app. And also, we YouTube that segment. You can watch the show live on YouTube, and we also put up an archive of that A-Rod interview. And you can also follow me on social media at Zach Gelb, ZACHGELB, as we put some clips out from the A-Rod conversation. Also appreciate Robbie Hummel, who joined us as well about 50 minutes ago. So enjoy the games tonight. Enjoy the Major League Baseball. That is underway. BYU, Alabama, Maryland, Florida, Arizona, Duke, Arkansas, Texas. We will recap it all tomorrow and also get you set for Ole Miss, Michigan State, Kentucky, Tennessee, Michigan, Auburn, and Purdue and Houston. Big thanks to each and every one of you for tuning in and helping out with the show as well. We'll be back tomorrow on a Friday edition of the Zach Gelb Show at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific time. Connor and also Sam Turak, thank you very much. And big thanks, everyone, for tuning in. Talk tomorrow, everybody. We out. Bye-bye. Peace.